Hello and welcome to NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another week and with another round of brilliant racing action here at the NXTGEN Racing community. And this evening you're tuning into NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. Well, we've made our way then for round number 4 to the heart and the home of British motor racing, for it is none other than the Silverstone Circuit. Located in the county of Northamptonshire, this circuit that's situated on the former site of Royal Air Force Base is a circuit that is absolutely iconic with the best that British motorsport has to offer. An extensive circuit with a wide variety of corners, extended straights, sweepers and all about the downforce. Whilst the drivers make their way around the circuit today, they'll not quite be taking on the full Grand Prix layout, but instead they're going to be focusing on the northern end of the Silverstone Circuit at what is known as the National Layout. The circuit, which will see our drivers roar the way down the old start-finish straight, now supplanted as a 2021 by the Hamilton Straight at the south side of the circuit. It is a northern section of circuit which consists of only 6 corners, 1.64 miles in length, but within all those corners and multiple straights, there's plenty of opportunity to do battle into each and every braking zone, and it really will feel as though it's the ultimate form of close-knit pack-based racing. But as we welcome you all to this live broadcast from circuit side, the question will be, who is going to be the ones to try and break their way away to victory? Well, we're going to find out, and you can be finding out via the tuning in of 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. And of course, we have 2 media platforms available officially through NXTGEN Racing, those being firstly on YouTube at youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. We also do say hello to those of you tuning in via Facebook at our official Facebook group. That's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. And hello to you guys and girls tuning in there. We lastly do have the unofficial broadcast that's available on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/TX11. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of what media platform you're tuning in via, you're going to be seeing the same broadcast. In the quarantine booth, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds this evening. It was expected to be a rather close-knit round of racing. In terms of our schedule for this evening, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we've seen, just under 18 minutes time, we make it away into our qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration. All the drivers out there on the circuit from 8 o'clock looking to go for the ultimate pole position lap. But how much will that pole position lap be worth when it comes to going racing? Because of course we have 3 races on our schedule, as we always do. The first of our race is due to get underway straight after qualifying at 8:15 this evening at 14 laps in duration, with all the drivers absolutely looking to give it their all there in the first of our 2 sprint races. And well, after that one, we take a brief breather before returning for our second race of the day, and that again will be another 14 lap run at 9 o'clock. It will get underway for race number 2, after which we then head to race number 3, our feature race, 25 minutes in length, 23 laps scheduled on the cards there. And we'll race number 3, of course, the one with the full reverse grid as well, and that's always going to throw up a few surprises in the longer race, but it comes just as much down to consistency as it does outright pace. But as we get set then come into tonight, well, let's talk a little bit about the story coming into tonight, particularly the rounds we've had so far. But as we can see, it's now the 24th of June for 2025, and round number 4 at the Silverstone National Circuit beckons. Prior to this, we opened up our account of the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit on the 13th of May, and there the big headline, of course, was the domination by Doble Sim Racing's Isaac Doble, the youngster absolutely delivering at the front of the field in the pro category and overall, and he looked absolutely untouchable for the first 2 races, and even in the third race, whilst he may not have been able to come home victorious in race number 3, he definitely demonstrated his credentials in terms of chasing down a championship glory. Then in round number 2, we made our way to the Snetterton 200 layout on the 27th of May, and there in the Norwich County Circuit, we got to see some rather intriguing conditions, and with the intriguing conditions, also some intriguing stories on circuit. And well, those circuit stories did include, of course, a Pro-Am taking victory overall in race number 1, and that going the way, if my memory serves me correctly, of Nick Clemens, absolutely running away with proceedings right at the front. And well, just behind him, of course, we did have Stuart Wyniss before you then came to your 3rd place overall finisher, the first of your pros. But that was race 1 at Snetterton 200, and then races 2 and 3 seem to be a bit more back towards normality. However, we definitely got to see a bit of a marshalling up and down the order in terms of finishing positions, and of course the rise of Adam Delmont at the expense of Isaac Doble in the second round. And last time out on the 10th of June, we were at the Knockhill International Circuit, and there in Scotland, where it truly was Scotland the Brave, and the home team racing there of Track Scotland absolutely delivered, with one of their drivers, whether it be Stuart Winess or Kieran Smart, taking victory in the Pro-Am class in all 3 races, with 2 victories for Stuart Winess in races 1 and 2, and in race number 3 it was Kieran Smart who took the glory. And meanwhile in the overall category we saw 3 different winners in 3 races, with Isaac Doble taking the race 1 win, Ben Gregory taking the win in race number 2, his first win of the season, and Adam Delmont returning to the top step for race number 3. And well, it does mean coming into this round it's anybody's guess who's going to be leading the way. So much so that unfortunately we're not going to be presenting you with championship standings coming into this round, because we do have a slight technical hitch, which means we can't quite get the stands updated at the moment. But rest assured, when we do come back for round number 5 in 2 weeks' time, we will hopefully have those championship standings available to keep you appeased as to what exactly is going on in the championship. But one thing right now, it is practically, by my guesstimate, it is dead level in the overall Drivers' Championship between Adam Delmont and Isaac Doble, and in the Pro-Am Championship, well, it is anybody's guess out of Stuart Winess, Kieran Smart, Michael Lees, and a number of other drivers, including Lewis Delmont, as to who is leading the way. But then, round number 5 will be at the Cadwell Park Circuit on the 8th of July, and indeed it'll be our first ever visit there, as the NXTCC doesn't make its way there, but the Legends are making their way there, given the more narrow nature of the circuit, more normally relegated to racing on 2 wheels, but we're going to dare it on 4 wheels, and will be a first for NXTGEN Racing. After which we then head to the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom, the Thruxton Circuit, on the 15th of July. On the 22nd of July, it'll be the Donington Park National Circuit that plays host, and as we make our way into August, will be the Alton Park Island Circuit 2 weeks later, as we make our way back to the NXTCC, and we continue to oscillate with the NXTCC schedule. But we do have that triple header in July, of course, given the fact the NXTCC is on its summer's break. But when we do see the NXTCC return, well, Alton Park Island will play host on the 5th of August for our penultimate round, and in round 9 of 9 on the 19th of August, we return to where it all began, at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, to have a thrilling conclusion, no doubt about that. So, going from our championship calendar then, well, let's talk about a circuit for today. And it is the national layout of the Silverstone Circuit, as mentioned previously. Located near the village of Silverstone in the county of Northamptonshire in England, the United Kingdom. Well, this circuit needs no introduction, argue, but we need to give it one either way, because of course it's only appropriate to do so. All our circuits deserve a little bit of love and a little bit of an introduction. And as you can see here from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, a big shout out to iRacing, not just for the brilliant simulator, but also the fantastic track maps that come as part of it. It definitely is the circuit that when you look at that picture, you can see the old Royal Air Force Air Base there, with regards to the old runways. Indeed, some of the artifacts still there to this very day. But with the circuit being very flat, and indeed a 2-dimensional image accommodating that, with there being barely any elevation change over the entire Grand Prix layout, but even on the northern side of the circuit, which is where our antics will be focused on the national layout, is a circuit with minimal elevation change. The only notable elevation change, technically, is the run out of turn number 1 up towards turn number 2, and the Maggotts hairpin, in the fact that you technically do have a slight rise from Cops Bend on the way up towards turn 2 before going into a slight dip into the braking zone for turns 2 and 3. But beyond that, there's barely any elevation change to report about. Also over the apex of turn number 5 at Luffield. But a lap around this circuit will consist of our drivers roaring their way in towards Cops Bend, a changing corner to get right by yourself, but to go 2 wide or even 3 wide through there, you've got to have a lot of patience and respect for your rival, and get it right, you'll carry all the speed all the way up towards Maggotts would be. However, rather than going to Maggotts and Beckett's, what our drivers will do, they'll cut their way through the Kinker 2, and then round the Maggotts hairpin at turn number 3 to make their way back onto the Aintree, and through the Kink of Aintree they'll go and onto the Wellington Straight. Another long straight, and that's where you can see plenty of slipstream based racing action before they make their way into the left into right combination, the S sequence of Brooklands and Luffield at turns 4 and 5, where the idea of being on the inside into Brooklands puts you on the outside for Luffield and vice versa, and therefore it's going to be very tactical and knowing exactly where to position yourself as you charge your way out of Luffield Bend through Woodcourt absolutely flat out at turn number 6 to complete lap and do it all over again. But in terms of our rules for this evening, because we can't go racing without some rules there, we've got to make sure we do have rules in play. Well, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every race in a given round. And onto that as well, the fact that driver classes have now been finalised as of the conclusion of round number 3, and I believe we've had no changes to the driver classes as far as I've been informed, and that does mean that all the drivers who you've seen in the Pro and also the Pro-Am classes, well, they're going to be staying exactly there as they come into this round, and we're not expecting any further change to the foot for the remainder of the season, or at least not at this time unless any changes need to be made as an emergency for the purposes of balancing out the championship campaigns. But on top of that, in terms of how our grids will be set, well, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. That's a given. When we go to race 2, the grid shall be set as a top 15 reverse grid based on results of race number 1. However, due to the relatively low number of drivers on the grid this evening, even if we do go above 15 drivers, we may see a full reverse grid for race number 2. That's going to be subject to the decisions of our stewards and organisers, but either way, we will see the majority of the grid being reversed if we do get over 15 drivers come the time we head to race number 2. But if not, it'll be a top 15 reverse and effectively a full reverse grid, and it'll be more of the same in race number 3's grid, because we'll be taking the grid and the finishing results of race number 2, and we will be entirely inverting them for a full reverse grid for our final race of the day. Now, should any of our drivers come into any damage or harm over the race distance, they'll have one fast repair available in each race in order to repair that damage and get themselves back up to speed and tip-top condition. Now, adding to that as well, we do have race stewarding in effect, and as we can see, an independent race director shall be stewarding the races for track limit infringements and the deployment of the safety car. Now, penalties for track limit infringements are thus: first and second warnings, there's no penalty. On the third warning, it's a 5-second post-race time penalty. We double it to 10 on the fourth warning, and on the fifth warning, well, it's a drive-through penalty. And those drive-through penalties, they must be served within 3 laps of being awarded. Racing incidents, meanwhile, shall be reviewed post-round. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We know what you're here for, and we're all here for it as well. That is the race in action. Let's head back to circuit side then and see our drivers making their way around right now at a rather cloudy day here at the Silverstone Circuit. And from what I've been hearing, there has been a rumour there could be a little bit of rain making its way on over, but it's a very low chance of rain coming, about 20%. If at all. So therefore, we are hoping for dry conditions throughout the entirety of today, and that'll definitely deliver some fantastic racing action, which is what we want to see from our Legends machines. We don't want to see them slip sliding all the way around, although they do look absolutely fantastic, no doubt about it, when we do see the rain come. But we also love to see those Legends in dry conditions as well. Already, the main thing is we want stable conditions. So if it is going to rain, we want the rain to be consistent. If it's going to be dry, we don't want the rain to come midway through, because yes, it does mix things up, and it leads to absolute chaos, and sometimes chaos can really be the spice of life. However, I think for all of our drivers, they want those stable conditions, and that's what they found so far this season. These Legends cars are absolutely brilliant to drive when the conditions are consistent. But as soon as the conditions start to go out of that consistent window, that is when these cars become an absolute handful in terms of knowing exactly when you need to get that balancing act on the wet lines versus the dry lines. But as our drivers grift their way around here right now, well, we can see Stuart Wyners there taking a bit of an excursion coming out of Luffield Bend, albeit he brings it back together there, and as he rolls on through, well, right now just trying to keep himself on the tarmac, and we're coming off of the high of a great set of results in Knockhill, because this is very far away from his home circuit, but still, from home or away, today is going to be the day where he'll look to try and add more wins to his championship campaign in the Pro-Am class. Now, we do have a newcomer on the grid for this evening, and you can see him here. This is Mark Hughes, and he's racing in the 495, and I believe this is the same Mark Hughes who I've had the pleasure of meeting in person quite recently. And indeed, for Mark Hughes, if you do ever want to see a driver in racing action, not just on the simulator, but also when it does come to racing around real-life circuits, well, this is the man, because Mark Hughes had initiated races in the Miltech Civic Cup, and you'll find him as one of the drivers racing further back down the field, albeit racing as part of the Winfield Trophy, and he races in the rather poignant blue FN2, and will right now exchanging front-engine, front-wheel drive Honda for none other than a Legends Coupe. Well, there's a bit of a spin there, getting to grips with it very quickly. The VTEC not kicking in necessarily because it is a Ford engine, but right now wish him all the best luck on his debut today. And I can tell you one thing, I think he's going to be very happy to enjoy racing these machines around. No pressure on him to get anything right, just out there to have a good old bit of fun. But definitely, if you ever get the chance to see him at race meet, definitely say hello to, because he's got plenty of time to talk about all things racing, and also a big smile on his face as well, as he, I think, will be smiling right now as he finds himself getting himself ready for his first qualifying session, which is only 7 minutes away. And in fact, I do wonder where we might be able to get a word with Mark if he is available. I don't think we get a patch through to the car, unfortunately, as much as we would have loved to, but I wonder if we'll be able to get a word with him a bit later on in today's broadcast. But as he makes his way on down, we look to Jamie Dory, one of our limited number of pro drivers here today. We've only got 5 pros who've made the way to the grid so far. We could have a couple more arrive before all is said and done, and whilst we are waiting to go into qualifying, we do say hello there to a couple in the YouTube chat, including Mikey 3D. Well, that's Mr. Lees, who's reported in from Lanzarote. Good evening to you as well, Mikey, and I do believe you're having a nice time out there in terms of the weather. I hope so, at at least, if my weather forecast has been correct, and I hope you're doing well in general, sir. We do miss seeing you on the grid today, but to be fair, you've earned yourself a holiday, so take it, enjoy it, my friend. We'll also say hello there to Berry Racing in the YouTube chat. Good evening to Jonathan Berry there, and I hope you're doing well as well. And well, as all drivers get themselves absolutely hooked in. If you are tuning in right now, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. And if you are tuning in from abroad, or alternatively not tuning in from the United Kingdom, let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're on holiday, let us know where you've gone to, and let us know if it's the first time you visited there, or whether it's a regular holiday destination for yourself. Because at the end of the day, we're always keen to understand where people are tuning in from. And we'll right now continue in the United Kingdom. It's been somewhat hot, albeit it's cooled down over the last couple of days, albeit in this commentary booth. Haven't quite turned the air conditioning on yet, but I do wonder whether we might have to one day this week, just for the simple reason that it's getting quite crisp in here, and we'll see how those conditions go. Oh my goodness, that is a very quick reaction there for Jamie Doran. That's cat-like reflexes there, and well, that was the car going around one of our iRacing esports machines, and I believe that was the car of Nigel Stock that had gone for the spin. Not Nigel Stock, Nick Clibbins, I should say, in the 013, as we look to Nigel Stock here, who brings around a little pack with him in the number 30. And the Cresta Motorsport driver here has got the company of the 61 Stuart Wireless, and he's also got the Infernal Green Machines, as they're known in amongst the NXTGEN Racing Legends community, in terms of how they're referred to, and that's NXTGEN Greens drivers of Adam Delmont, and with him Sam Bradley as they run around together, and Delmont in the 30 cent, Bradley in the 69, both looking nice, and as they charge their way on down here in towards the Maggot's hairpin, well, you'd see all four of these drivers right now enjoying a little bit of a back and forth, and I can imagine they're using this to practice getting used to how they'll need to work together in qualifying to get the optimum lap times, but also getting used to what the pack racing is going to be like under race conditions here, in the fact that whilst they've got 4 minutes left in this qualifying session, you will want to get a feel for how much of an overspeed you pick up down the Wellington Straight, and where your braking zones change, and just how much grip there is on the inside versus the middle of the road versus the outside. The grip levels do typically vary, particularly if somebody goes off circuit and takes some grass and gravel back onto the circuit, and that can suddenly make it very, very slippery out there compared to the grip that you would be used to. Now, I do see Berry Racing saying, wondering if I have time to get the sim up and running to join in. Well, you're more than welcome to. If you are part of the league, feel free for you to join in, and do let our admins know. And again, if you don't make it to the grid for the purposes of qualifying off for race number 1, but you can make it for later on in the race day, we are open to taking drives onto the grid for what is races 2 and 3 in a given round evening. So therefore, just let the admins know, and they'll look to accommodate you on the grid where they can. Albeit I should point out that this is a paid entry series, ladies and gentlemen, so if you do jump onto the grid, well, they may be able to get you onto the grid at short notice, but expect there will be the question of whether you'll be paying to join for the remainder of the season or not. But that will be at the discretion of our admins, given the fact that we are midway through the season. We do see there Mikey Feedy saying, it's a scorcher, I'll be back soon for some racing. Glad to hear it's a bit of a scorcher out there, and I can imagine it might be a bit piping hot for our drivers in their sim racing rigs at the moment. But the big question we now have is, can we get a word from one or two of our drivers out there at the time? And well, as we see Lewis Mason making his way on around there in the Aztec Racer Machine in the 991, will rolling his way on through. In fact, let's see if we can get a word from Lewis Mason. It's been some time since we've spoken to him as he heads down the back stretch, and we do look inside the car, and well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we get a patch through to him. Now, as we do get a patch through to Lewis's car, Lewis, have you got time for a quick word?
Yeah, mate.
Good evening to you, Lewis, and well, by the looks of things, you're back out there today in the Aztec Racer Machine. It's all smiles afoot. How are you feeling for Silverstone?
I'm really looking forward to it. This is quite a fun track, especially in these cars. The draft down the straights is going to be mega.
Oh, 100% about that. I can see right now you are following a couple of drivers on the round. I believe Jamie Dory being one of them there. What's it like to follow a car in the tow around here?
It's a lot of fun. Not when you're the one leading, though, but when you're the ones that are following people, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, 100%. You never quite want to be the leader, but you've got to be leading right at the end to win the race. Speaking of which, what can we expect from you today?
Probably not much. I don't think my pace is quite up there with the ones that are going to be leading. But hopefully, if there's a couple of incidents, I can make my way through and see what I can get in the result.
Well, Lewis, we wish you all the best for today. Good luck, and we'll see you at the checker flag at the end of race 1.
Cheers, Paul.
So they're having a quick word from Lewis Mason, our Aztec Racing Prime driver, ladies and gentlemen. He's excited for it and talking there about the pace of these cars when they are in the draft of each other, but never wanted to be the leader. Not fancying his chances because of the pace he's bringing to the table, but to be fair, I think a lot of drivers will feel that way, but if they can stay with the pack, well, that will completely usurp any idea if they don't have any pace out there. They're going to be quite confident in the fact they may just be able to leap their way forward over the course of race distance. Remember, the only time you need to be leading in these Legends machines is when you get to that checker flag. It sounds really obvious, but it's one of the biggest understated facts of Legends racing, indeed any pack racing discipline such as Mazda MX-5 Cup, in the fact so long as you stay with the lead pack over the entire race distance and then make your way through on the final lap, that's when it truly matters. You build up to a crescendo, but it is really a race of staying with everybody. But as we do see Bikey3D there, giving advice to Berry Race in the YouTube chat about how to be on the grid if you can be in time, and saying that entries are open all the way up prior to race 1, all the way throughout qualifying. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, only 20 seconds away from heading into qualifying as Lewis Mason there decides to take an excursion. It almost ends up going onto the GP loop. And remember, there are 3 layouts to Silverstone. You have the full Grand Prix layout, which we're not on today. You do have the national layout, which we're here on today. That is at the northern end of the circuit. And you also have the international layout, which essentially cuts off the back end of the circuit, or the southern side, where the start-finish line is on the Hamilton Straight and the circuit terminates itself on the run through Abbey. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to make our way to qualifying then. It's going to be 15 minutes, all drivers out there giving it their all. But who is going to be on pole? Let's find out. And well, qualifying ticks away, and as it does so, well, good news is we've got Jonathan Berry. He's made it onto the grid right at the start of qualifying, and well, that's absolutely brilliant timing. And with that means we get a slightly bigger grid now, I believe, of 17 drivers who will all be looking to go for gold when it comes to a pole position lap. Now, what does it take to get pole position? Well, if we have to go by the season so far, the theory would be that pole position in any of the rounds is consisted of having a bit of pace under your own gumption, but then finding a few drivers to work with and pick up a huge tow. And we did see some mammoth pole position laps, none more so than Isaac Doble's opening pole position lap for the season at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, where the man was absolutely untouchable and will in the end ran away with pole position by a couple of attempts, which is unnatural given the length of these circuits. These are short circuits which are made exactly for these Legends machines, so to take pole position by a 100th or 2, that's commonplace. To do it by a 10th or 2, that is a rarity. And at Knock Hill as well, we got to see plenty of back and forth in qualifying all the way through to the final checker flag and those final laps. But as we do see Berry in the 96 rolling his way out there, and well, the Fisher-Price car making its way through, and indeed that always gets a few chuckles. It makes me grin every time I see it in the commentary booth, albeit I have to try and keep as straight a face as possible, as otherwise I'll be giggling all the way to the finish line. Well, the Fisher-Price machine that carries its way right now with its little eyes, and we're very happy to see Berry out there once again. The little Tykes paint, as Mikey3D says there, and well, now making his way onto his first flying lap. But in terms of the lap itself, as goodness me, we've had a bit of a spin for Lewis Mason there, and I think we've had another driver also have a bit of an altercation at the same point in time. Oh my goodness, Nick Clibbins is on his roof there. What on earth has happened to Nick Clibbins? Well, there's only one way to find out as he tows back to the pit lane. Let's get a replay, but that is not good viewing. What happened to Clibbins? Made their way into Cops Bend, and I think Mason here is going to lose the rear, and in the end Clemens looks one way then the other, and as the car slides to the gravel, oh my goodness, that is the car rolling out. Only a small bit of gravel, but suddenly the car being launched over, and will understandably the reason being, and why you do see cars roll when they go into gravel traps, is because the gravel, understandably, has a lot more friction or slowing potential compared to tarmac, and the idea is you get that very quick slowing effect very suddenly, and when a car's going sideways towards the gravel at an angle, well, the weight of the car suddenly pitches over the wheels that are closest to the gravel have gone into it first. So you've got a very fast approaching outside of the car, which wants to roll over the top of the inside of the car that's made its way into the gravel. But thankfully, this is just a simulator for Nick Clibbins, and therefore no harm done, albeit I can imagine he may have taken his hands off the steering wheel very quickly, particularly if it was on a force feedback wheel, a direct force feedback wheel, because otherwise that might have taken his thumbs out. I can tell you from experience, ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks into using a direct drive wheel, I almost broke my right thumb where I didn't take my finger out the steering wheel in time, and I did have a bit of a snap oversteer moment. But enough about me and my thumbs, and right now let's twiddle our fingers here and wonder who is now going to start to set the benchmark pace. Well, it is going to be Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective, working with teammate Kieran Sharp. and these two right now looking as though they've got a bit of pace out there, but we are still early days. We only have 5 pro drivers here. Everyone else is a pro-am, and well, that always does throw a big spanner in the works there, because our pros, they may be limited in number, and they have been even with the full grids earlier in the season. But the idea is here's the pros are the masters of the Legends machines, and the Pro-Ams are all trying to beat them. Well, they all do race in the overall Drivers' Championship, but the Pro-Ams also have their own individual Pro-Am Class Drivers' Championship, where all the points are adjusted based on the Pro-Am finishing positions. But the idea being here is the Pro-Ams can stay with the pros, then they'll feel as though they're really building up and learning more and more as the season goes on. But more laps coming in, and the Goldwyn Motorsports machine there of Duncan at Mariah's, the livery being designed by a teammate and, well, good friend of the NXTGEN Racing community, Andy Fox, who right now I suspect will be watching this at a distance. Unfortunately not on the grid at the moment due to personal circumstances, but we look forward to the day that we do see Andy back on the grid, because he's definitely massively missed out there. And well, as Mariah makes his way around right now, the South African driver here coming down in 11th place and starting to pick up the pace little by little. Well, but he's got plenty of time to try and find the pace out there. That's always a good thing, but I can imagine that right now the whole aim of the game will be simply for him to try and get his head on down and continue to move on forward. And of course, every 10th that he can strip away over the qualifying laps, that will give him some more confidence, but he also wants to pick up the turf of other cars. We do see here Andrew Pike having a bit of oversteer coming out of Luffield Bend, as Nigel Stock now sets the fastest lap, a 105.901, and I believe that was in a bit of company, but Pike comes to line. He's currently second, 1.5 tenths down, and he shaves off 4 thousandths, so 106.024, but he's not made his way into the 105s as of yet. So Nigel Stock sets the benchmark pace now, and it looks like here the Crest Autosport number 30 may have an ace up its sleeve, and Stock, definitely a long-time driver in the NXTGEN Racing community, one of the oldest veterans outside of NXTGEN Racing team driver members. In fact, I can remember Nigel Stock being on the grid all the way back in our first ever GT3 league on iRacing, and that would have been the best part of 4 years ago, if I remember my history correctly, because we started off on the Settle Course Competizione, and then we did move to iRacing, and that's where we did leap into the world of the GT3 class racing, and Nigel Stock being on that, plus also being in the NXTCC's maiden season. Indeed, he has seen it all in NXTGEN Racing, and an absolutely lovely chap to boot as well, and has picked up multiple victories in his NXTGEN Racing Championship career, and well, upwards and onwards to him. Can he add to that pool today will be the big question that he'll be looking to try and give us a positive answer to. But speaking of answers, as Kieran Sharp heads the line, the number 23 driver there, ahead of his teammate of Pike, when he comes across the line, and now he sets the pace. A tenth faster than Stock, it's 105.811. And therefore this pace definitely coming on down as the fuel also comes down in the cars and more grip is being laid down onto the circuit. But the question you might be asking at this point is, okay, with all that, well, what's it like to deliver a lap around here under qualifying trim? Well, the good answer is for that is we can give you an onboard lap very shortly. And we'll speak of an onboard lap, as we do have Kieran Smart moving up to 4th place. Well, that onboard lap is coming up very soon, and in fact we might be getting an onboard lap here with Mark Hughes to see how he gets on as he puts his first qualifying laps in at the Legends machine. So across the timeline he goes and in towards turn number 1, and he'll be on the brakes about 75 minutes from corner apex. A little bit of understeer there on turn in as the weight of the car transitions, but exits out of Cops Bend and now picking up the speed again. Flat out he'll go then all the way up towards the Maggots complex, and as he makes his way through left into right here, it'll be hard on the brakes all the way down, trail braking, lets the car roll deep, and now back on the throttle and let it come around here as he heads through Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. Flat out again then, that's 2 corners down, and now he's got another 3 to go because he heads his way in towards turn number 4. He'll bring the car gradually over to the right, and well, this is going to be now all about braking as late as possible and trailing off the brakes as he brakes that one at the 50-meter board down to 4th gear, then down to 3rd, finding needs to drop a gear to get some rotation. Now into Luffield Bend, and as he stays nice and tight to the apex, you can see they're taking a bit of a V-shaped approach, letting the car creep away before turning it back in for a later apex, and well, now it's flat out all the way for Hughes here, and well, he is 2.5 seconds off the pace so far in qualifying based on his previous lap. What's it going to be this time as he exits Woodcock Corner and looks to try and go a bit faster? When he moves up to 15th then, improves by a sizable 6 tenths. Good on Hughes to do that, and well, next up he'll try and go a little bit faster than that, and that's what it's all about. Build up the pace, burn the fuel out of the car, and get the tyres warmed up. But as we do say hello there to Roger Pike, who says good evening everyone in the Facebook chat, and says thanks for the ad, Roger and Angela Pike there, and I believe may be related to Andrew Pike, not sure whether it might be siblings, alternatively mother and father, or somewhere in between. I'm sure if you want to, Roger, you can let us know there your relationship. I'm presuming there's a relationship here to Andrew Pike, and with the Sim Racing Collective driver enjoying himself, no doubt about it, albeit that's Nick Clibbins that's stepping a bit wide there, and well, taking a bit of a rallycross line to avoid tripping over the Sim Racing Collective esports drivers. But Nick Clibbins right now, in fact, that's not Nick Clibbins, because Clibbins is all the way down at turns 4 and 5. That would have been Sam Smith there having a bit of an excursion. In fact, there we can confirm there is Smith in the number 27 iRacing esports machine, and we're half the qualifying session complete and still half of it to go, or a bit less so. Well, right now, Smith definitely looking as though he's not in a happy place as he battles with the steering wheel there, coming out to turn number 3. On to the backstretch he goes, and as he powers his way along, heading all the way down shortly to Brooklands Bend. The problem is here for Smith, the fact we normally see him go quite quickly in these qualifying sessions, but the pace seems to be eluding him at the moment. And again, he may also need a bit of a draft to find that time. And the one aspect as well that we haven't really talked about is how potent is the slipstream here at the Silverstone National Circuit? And the short answer to that is it could be worth the best part of half a second if you absolutely nail it, is where to understand it. As we do see there Jamie Dory and, well, next-gen green driver in the 69 Sam Bradley both queuing up to go onto flying laps. So Smith tucks in front of them. And, well, this could definitely prove to be a little bit of a prickly situation here for Dory, because he'll have a driver behind him who naturally wants to go faster. In fact, Dory decides to back off and jump onto the back of the pack there. He sends a message very clear, one which is this isn't going to work out. And, well, as we do see, Stuart Winus there leading ahead of the pairing of, I believe that's Duncan Rise and also Jonathan Berry. Well, the 96 driver improves, as does Winus there, and Berry moving up into 11th place as Winus decides to let the car roll a bit wide coming out of Cops Bend, and, well, therefore not wanting to step on the toes of anybody. And in between it all, also we do have the 39 car of Kieran Smart, the second of the Track Scotland cars here, albeit not in perhaps as glamorous a livery as his teammate of Winus, but these two continue to work together, and will prove how powerful the draft is, as Mikey 3D talks about there in the YouTube chat, saying incredibly powerful in these cars, and no question, because we are seeing it really work wonders over the course of this qualifying distance. One driver we haven't seen out on circuit is Alan McCain for iRacing Esports. I wonder whether there's a bit of an issue with the car, because I haven't got anything to say that he's banned from qualifying for any reason, although that would be post-round stewarding from round number 3. If so, therefore perhaps for McCain there might be a bit of an issue with the car, and they're working on it and hoping to get him out on the grid for race number 1. But to be fair, starting from the back of the grid, it does mean, it does mean one of the situations whereby if all drama plays out right at the start, he may gain plenty of places, but he may also find that the field separates before he's really able to make any progress. But as we see Roger Pike in the Facebook chat saying, very proud parents to Andrew Pike, who watch every week without fail, and I finally learned how to message, being of the old generation. Well, they do say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you know what? I'm not referring to you as a member of the canine species whatsoever, but just going by the saying, you can always learn a little something, whether it be how to engage in a Facebook chat message, or alternatively with technology. And we're very happy to have you with us, Roger and Angela, and I hope you're both doing well and having a great summer so far. And we did see a big spin there for, I believe that was Phil McDougall having a bit of a moment, or Jonathan Berry, one of the two. Can we get a replay of that? I think we can. Here's a quick replay back. And this was Jonathan Berry. It was having it go a bit wrong under braking there into Maggots. And as he rolled into the corner, a bit too much speed. Rear of the car goes one way. He tries to overcorrect it, and in the end it goes spinning to the grass. However, thankfully, plenty of runoff area. That's one of the good things about racing on an old airfield, in the fact that it is a circuit that can very quickly be developed, have plenty of runoff space, and able to use that. But as we come back now, and with 3 minutes left on the clock, plus also any overtime for the final laps that drivers are on when the clock strikes 15 minutes. Well, right now, Kieran Smart and Stuart Wine is still trying to work together, trying to find a bit more time, but it's the Sim Racing Collective driver of Kieran Sharp who is the fastest of everybody here, and, well, leading the way by 1.5 tenths almost over Adam Delmont as Berry. Oh, no, that's not going right at all for Jonathan Berry, and into the barrier it goes, losing it out of Cops Bend, and right now he's getting more and more aggressive with the car, but the problem is he pushes harder and harder. It does mean that you do start to find those limits, and that's the challenge, and that's why our pro drivers here are the pros, because they are the ones that when it does go a little bit sideways, they're normally very quick on catching the car. But as they roll the way around, and the 69 driver here of Bradley tucks in behind teammate Adam Delmont, or Adam Delmont pulling away from Bradley there. Bradley goes a bit sideways, coming out of turns 2 and 3. On the Wellington straight they come, and Adam Delmont, can he find a way to get a bit closer to Sharp. I think he needs a toe to do so, but the problem is nobody wants to give him the toe, and well, as well with the fact that he's one of the fastest drivers out there without a slipstream, so you can understand why when he comes up behind the driver, the only driver he would arguably want to be behind is the man who's making his way into the pit lane, and that is Kieran Sharp, your pole sitter provisionally. I think he's feeling as though he's got the job done. There's nothing more that can be done, so he doesn't want to give the toe to anybody. Albeit I think his teammate Andrew Pyatt might be saying, Kieran, where have you gone? Because I kind of need you in order to help me out here, given the fact he'll be starting 5th at best if things stay as they are. Then again, he might be able to find somebody to work with right at the end, but of course having a teammate out there versus having rivals to work with is a very different complex, because your teammate you're normally on the radio to, talking to and saying this is how we're going to get things to work. The flip side of the coin is one of the situations whereby when you're working with one of your rivals, you can't quite communicate with them. You have to use proverbial racing Morse code, which is normally a flash of the headlights if your car has them, depending on the discipline, to try and say to them, look, I politely need you to go faster or get out of the way. But these cars, they don't have headlights, therefore they'll be using John Cleland terminology. And well, for those of a certain disposition who may remember the infamous clip from the Super Touring era, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those who don't, definitely look up on YouTube when you have a brief moment. At another time, I'm going for first, says Cleland, and you'll know exactly what we're referring to there in the infamous words of the late great Murray Walker. But not that all our drivers do decide and to absolutely push each other to the limit, but as they make the way around, well, we can see that could be the shifting. You have to use the manual clutch on these to be fast, says Mikey 3D, and the clutch kick is a technique that takes a bit of practice on the way up through the gearbox. Indeed, that's there to be true. And talking about for Berry's accident, indeed, having to manage the clutch there, all part of it. And well, of course, many of our drivers will be used to cars that have sequential gearboxes, alternatively have, well, what will be known as dual clutch gearboxes, where it is sequential but with paddles, whereas these you are going back to old school in terms of manual, and that always leads to a bit of a challenge. But we come to the crunch point then of this qualifying session. 10 seconds left on the clock, but remember, once they come across that timeline, any laps they're on, they are allowed to finish. And well, we will see, I believe, in fact we're going to get very early into this qualifying, because Sam Smith makes his way around. He is coming towards the timeline, 15 minutes are struck on the clock. He rolls on around, and as he comes across that line, well, he will set a time, but he will not improve from where he's currently sat, and that's going to be where he is. What about other drivers out there? Nigel Stocks into the pit lane. Adam Delmont makes his way on through. We have had to come into the pit lane as well. Already Phil McDougall, also Lewis Mason. A big snap there from Sam Bradley in the rear of the picture. He decides to excavate his way towards the pit lane, and Adam Delmont, meanwhile, comes to the line. And going slowly there, he's not happy with that lap, so he's not improved. Has anybody improved out, though? I don't think anybody has. And Matthew Cheverton's gone around on the exit of Luffield Bend, and that's been a bit of a late error and a nasty one. We also do have Mark Hughes heading towards the pit lane, and well, I think Hughes has decided he can't go any higher than 14th place, but still a good effort on his debut in the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup. And that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody else able to improve out there, and it is going to be Kieran Sharp who takes pole position for the Sim Racing Collective, and that'll be overall and in pro class. And then in third place for prime pole position, it will be Nick Clibbins. So an absolutely brilliant job there from all the drivers. And we do have a new driver on the grid, and that will be in the format of Matthew Jordan as well, who has just joined literally at the close of the qualifying session. And well, he will be a newcomer in the prime class, and we wish him the best of luck as he makes his way onto the grid today. So a couple of drivers dropping in here and there as they can. It's always good to see more drivers making their way onto the grid, but very shortly we will be heading to that proverbial grid, and we will be getting race number 1 under the way. But as all the drivers then get themselves set, will the circuit fall silent, and well, our 18 drivers will be making their way onto the grid. They'll know that qualifying is just one part of the story, but they're going to have a much bigger challenge when it comes to going green flag racing. So speaking of green flag racing, here we go, then, ladies and gentlemen. And this is how they'll line up for our first race of round number 4 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3, as brought to you on iRacing, and the grid is as follows. It is Kieran Sharp who lines up on pole position for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. The pro pole sitter is joined alongside by fellow pro driver Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green. Nick Clibbins starts third for iRacing Esports as your pro and pole sitter, and then we'll have Nigel Stock starting fourth for Crest Autosport just behind, and the two of them separated by 1.2 tenths. Andrew Pyatt lines up fifth for the Sim Racing Collective Esports on the third row of the grid, with Kieran Smart, his close arrival there, and Scottish driver starting sixth for Track Scotland. And then behind Smart will be his teammate Stuart Winess, who starts seventh for the Scottish outfit, with Sam Bradley making his way to eighth on the grid for NXTGEN Green and having a reasonable qualifying performance. Jamie Dury starts ninth for NXTGEN Racing, number 13 driver, not quite on the roller pace that we saw seen in early rounds of this season, but to be fair, starting 9th, I think he'll have the confidence he can potentially make up those places quicker than most, and he'll be in the company of South African driver for Goldwing Motorsports, Duncan Morais, who completes your top 10. Outside the top 10, in 11th, it'll be Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing at best of the rest, ahead of Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. A further 2.5 tenths to Jonathan Berry for Mission R, who starts 13th. And then debut at Privateer, that's Mark Hughes, he starts 14th, learning the ropes. And he was only a thousandth off of Berry's time in the end, so close between them. And it was only a further 5.5 hundredths back to Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black, who starts 15th. Joining McDougall on the 8th row of the grid is Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, and then not setting the time, Alan McCain for iRacing Esports and Matthew Jordan, the Privateer, and that will be your 18-car grid. And we do have Mark Sykes, give a special shout out to him in the safety car. He'll be helping run proceedings when we do have a safety car, but most of the field is on the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and we are just waiting for Alan McCain, and it will be 14 laps that sets us away for the first 12 races of the day. But as they all wait and very eagerly get ready to go, well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Lights are going on, and here at Silverstone for the first time today, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go. There's the flames spit from the exhaust, and they charge the way down towards turn number 1. Kieran Sharp gets a good exit off the line as Adam Delmont meanwhile stays with him 3 wide further back, but very quickly there Nigel Stock backs out, makes it 2 wide as Clibbins versus Pike. Andrew Pike having a good start, but can he move up into third here? Side by side with Clibbins further in the rear of your picture, and we can also see good starts there for Mark Hughes and Matthew Jordan as they come down to the braking zone, and it's Clibbins who gets back ahead of Pike. But in the mid-pack there we do have Stuart Winus, who's had a little bit of a slow start, falls back to 7th but battles his way past Stock for 6th. Nigel Stock losing multiple places off the start-finish line straight as they roll their way down the Wellington Straight here. This is where the pack racing will now start to unfold. Everyone immediately trying to get into single line formation. Unless your name is Nigel Stock and Sam Bradley, they're trying to work together off of the racing line here in order to make some progress. But Bradley taps the rear of Stock. Stock goes flying into the corner, and in the end tucks in behind Winus. And further back, Duncan Morais up into 12th place, where he's recovering places that he's lost early on, as Phil McDougall's made 2 places off the line up to 13th. And Morais and Smith still side by side out of Luffield Bend, albeit it is going to go the way there of Morais, as Smith had a bit of an oversteer moment on the exit of the corner. And now here comes McDougall. He gets 1, he gets 2. The Heineken machine right now, well, it's not encouraging drink driving, but right now it is driving its way towards victory champagne as a drink as they rake the way through turn number 1 and 3 wide behind. And Morais, Smith and Berry all giving each other breathing room. Berry losing the rear, and he goes round and collects the 991 there of Lewis Mason, but they both survive it. Both go for a 360-degree spin, and well, brilliant car control from both of them, and they keep it together. Matthew Jordan, meanwhile, didn't make his way into the qualifying session. We started from last, and he arrives at the scene of the incident and says, okay, what's happened here? Do you mind if I take the places? And does so, as Sam Smith, meanwhile, well, he's had a bit of a spin there coming out of turn number 2 and 3, and he brings it back together, and they all part the seas around him. But from the driver further down the order, well, we've got plenty of battling towards the front of the order. Nick Clemens is on the inside of the man we're currently riding on board and looking back from. This is Kieran Sharp, and well, you may see Clemens on the right of your picture. There he is. Clemens decides to materialise from the ether, and well, he returns to your screen, and Kieran Sharp absolutely fighting hard as they roar the way up towards the next lap. Plenty of laps to go, of course, and well, as they make the one through, there comes an absolutely blazing red hot Adam Delmont, and Delmont now on the inside there. That's the overspeed from the toe, and this top 5 right now, all in fact top 6, all pulling away as Delmont there takes the lead of the race, and Kieran Smart elbows his way into 2nd place. But look how everyone's fanning out here. They're all figured out where to go on the road. They can go 5 wide there if they so desire, albeit there's very little breathing room. 3 wide's normally the optimum number if you're going to go multi-wide. Oh no, and that's 2 cars round. That's Delmont. That's also the iRacing Esports car of, I believe, well, it's not Andrew Pike who's gone round. That is, I'm trying to see who it was. Was that Nick Clemens? Yes, it was. Clemens having a spin as well. So Delmont and Clemens both having a bit of a coming together there on the downshift in towards turn 2, and both of them losing it, but they bring it back together, and well, as they do, that relegates them all the way down the order. Mark Hughes now finds himself up into 11th place, so that's some big gains being made there from Hughes. He'll be very happy with that, no doubt about it, and I think sometimes it's all about just simply avoiding the drama, and you might be able to make the places with all the drama that's happening, and it's definitely paying dividends there. But with that, it means we now got a top 2 of programs, and well, much like in Scotland only 2 weeks ago, well, the Track Scotland pair of Winus and Smart right now are leading this race together as they literally run across the line neck and neck, with Kieran Sharp watching from behind. Sharp in 3rd place there. He's looking for an opportunity to get involved, but I don't think that he's going to be able to at the moment as Winus and Smart continue to push onwards, but it's absolutely brilliant racing between all of them. Free wide they come. Sharp decides to go for the Moses manoeuvre here. He parts the seas of Pro-Ams, but will the seas fold back on him? And the answer is yes, they will. And Winus in the end holding that inside line, but gets a big tank slapper there coming out the corner. So Sharp will take the place there through an error from Winus, and well, they will swap the places for now. Matthew Cheverton holding on to 6th place. He started at length. He's made some great progress here. And well, whatever didn't work out in qualifying, he's making it work here under race conditions. And well, in a bit of an altercation with the pair there of Stock and Bradley, you can see a bit further back Andrew Pike. Well, recovering from what was a bit of a moment earlier on in the race. He's holding on to 8th with Phil McDougall right behind him. And it does seem as though right now our early leaders, well, those who are making mistakes, have got to try and find their way back into the hunt. But with all the fighting that's gone on towards the front of the field, this is in fact actually working out quite nicely. But we need to replay of some incidents that have happened, and let's find out what happened between Delmont, Clemens and Pike on lap number 3, and here's the replay. Now, this was in the scramble down towards Maggot's hairpin, and as they all came down to the braking zone here, well, 3 wide on entry, and you'll see Pike there in the 57. Well, Delmont goes round, Smith goes round behind him trying to take evasive action, and Pike in the end just taps through Delmont's car and takes the escape route, which is around the outside of it, and that explains what happened there. But can we get on board with what happened with Nick Clemens to see exactly how he lost it? I think we can. Let's listen in. Lifting off the throttle there, and oh no, in the end he did make contact, and that's what sent both of them round. Clemens misanticipating the speed of entry into the corner behind Delmont. I'm sure they'll talk about that one after the race, and well, I think Clemens will be apologetic about it, but the two just having a brief coming together there. No harm done in terms of the fact those cars are carrying on, but definitely damage done there to both machines, and not ideal. We have unfortunately had a retirement from Matthew Jordan to the pit lane, albeit the car's in the pits at the moment being serviced. Can we get a replay of what happened to Matthew Jordan? I think we might be able to. Here's a replay of that. And it was your number 19 driver making his way into turn 1, hits the apex curb, hits the sausage high, holds it together for the most part, and it snaps on him. Oh no, straight into the barrier there. And well, for Matthew Jordan, well, the front left suspension being completely crippled, and that ending his race before he could go any further. But coming back to your live racing then, we've seen some of the major incidents over the last couple of laps, but now let's come to the major racing right at the front of the field. As soon as I say that, Nigel Stock and Matthew Cheverton have a big coming together there, and well, Cheverton comes off the worst of the two of them coming into turn number 2, and goodness me, the Aztec racing machine carries on there. I'm amazed that has not got a wounded suspension on that front right arm, but still he's been able to avoid it for the best part of the damage, and therefore falls a bit further back. Adam Delmont, meanwhile, now being pushed along by Nick Clemens as they both got the inside of Nigel Stock. Duncan Rice also comes with them, and the gloves seem to be coming off between our drivers now, and I would imagine that at this point it may be one of the situations whereby all the drivers now are really starting to get their elbows out. But the problem is, when you start to drive a little bit more aggressive and you start to up the pace, that's when the mistakes happen, and that's where the proverbial red mist descends. Albeit we'll see just how red that mist is right now as they head in towards Cops Bend. They head towards the halfway point of the race. Sharp taking the lead there for Winus, with Dory, then Sam Brady and Kieran Smart completing your top 5, and there is a comfortable 2.3 seconds back to Andrew Pike in 6th place. We stay transfixed to the top 3 here as Sharp defends the middle of the road. That enables Winus to get up the inside of Dory. Dory looking for a way all the way round as we ride on board, looking across the front bonnet of the number 13, and the NXTGEN Racing car there following the wheel tracks. But look at the overspeed he's picking up there. He hasn't got time to tuck into the toe. Winus comes on out. Dory's going to go to the inside here. It will be 3 wide on entry into the braking zone. Who's going to be leading coming out of the corner? Well, that will be Brooklands into Luffield. Dory's on the inside initially, but now he switches to the outside. And on the outside here, you don't have the optimal line in terms of the distance you go around through the corner. The flip side of the coin, however, is in the fact that you have the exit that's the longest for accelerating towards the start-finish line. So therefore, if you get it right, you may be able to lead your way onto the next lap, if not to the checkered flag, if you build up enough of an overspeed. But you can see there, Sam Bradley now trying to get involved versus Dory, and Kieran Smart thinking about it on the outside, going for a bit of a cut back there, but no way in at the moment, and this top 5 continue to swing back and forth, and I think we're going to see plenty of that before this is all said and done. The intriguing part is how they managed to manage this all the way over the race distance, to stay this close to each other and not end up in major contact. Good news, by the way, Matthew Jordan has left the pit lane from the repair work after his big shunt into the barrier at the Cops Bend. So he may be multiple laps down, but Matthew Jordan out there and looking to go green flag racing again. But further down the order, Lewis Mason and Sam Smith, they're fighting over 15th place. Or for the primes, that's 10th place in class, so some valuable points there, with Mason going defensive into Cops Bend and Smith looking to cut him back as they roll off the apex. But both drivers here having a difficult start to the race and therefore trying to pick up the pieces as quickly as they can. But understandably, with Jonathan Berry being at 14 seconds up the road, therefore they may be locked into a little bit of battle of their own doing all the way to the end, but we will wait and see with eager eyes. But looking from there back towards the front, with everything that's happening up, down in the middle of the field, well, the top 5 here continue to swing back and forth. It's 2 by 2 into the opening quarter with Kieran Smart there looking up the inside, but he will be outpaced by the other Kieran, and that's Kieran Sharp, who goes all the way around the outside. He takes 1, he takes 2, but he won't be able to quite take Winus here to take the lead, or will he, as they come down in towards Maggots. Onto the brakes they go, through the hairpin, and as they X out the right-hander, it's Winus going defensive with Sharp and Smart looking on both sides of him here, and well, right now it's anybody's guess as to how Winus is able to hold himself ahead just for a brief moment. But as they head on down the Wellington Straight, there's going to be 4 wide here. It is Sam Bradley thinking about a 5 wide. No! It's all gone wrong, and all 3 of them have a bit of a moment together there, albeit they're all able to avoid the wall. But Andrew Pike makes his way through with Kieran Sharp, his teammate, rejoining just in the nick of time, with Adam Delmont latching onto the back of him. However, it's got a bit wrong for Stuart Winus by comparison, and Winus, well, he recovers the car, but he falls all the way down to 10th place. So, well, oh no, I think for Winus, that damage of the car might be a sign he's got to come into the pits and take a free repair. We'll have to see. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to try and stay out there, but he's definitely got a car that's wanted to point sideways rather than straight. But can we understand what exactly happened there is the question. We can get a replay, and here it is. Can we get a good angle of it? So this was coming on down towards the braking zone, and as they made the way in, oh, there we go, and it was the 23 that came slightly across of Kieran Sharp, made contact with Jamie Dory's car. Dory getting away with it, however, not feeling much. It was more of a recoil or a ricochet off of Dory's car for Sharp that triggered off the chain reaction and then collected Stuart Winus and also the car of Smart. But we take a look back at that from an onboard of Winus' car, and well, here as he made his way down to the braking zone, he'll be minding his own business, and then Sonny, he'll finally get Sonny hit from the side rear, and that will send him and also there his 2 rivals sideways on the road, and that was very unfortunate. But with that, it's definitely going to be overheated tyres for Stuart Winus with all the sliding and then subsequently the spin, and now I can imagine that for the number 61 driver, he's just got to try and get his composure back. But to be fair, he's a very composed driver around here and one of the most respectful on the grid. But as they roar the way around and up towards turn number 1, I can definitely tell you that right now, sat in the commentating booth with me are our race directors, and they're absolutely enjoyed the racing out there, and I can hear them in my ear at the moment, enjoyed it all. And well, as the racing carries on, I think they're trying to feed me some information as well, but in my excitement, I may have missed a key bit of information. I'm sure I'll get it very shortly off of them, but everything is absolutely fantastic in terms of the racing right now. As we look back to the very front of the field, and we can see Kieran Smart charge his way onwards with Sam Bradley right behind him. And no change at the moment. 2 wide they come down towards the braking zone here for Brooklands into Luffield, and this time it's going to be Bradley up the inside of Smart. Smart not quite able to hold the inside line into Luffield Bend, and well, by looks of things, Bradley might now be trying to make the break at the very front of the field. If he can do this, well, it'll be very impressive, no doubt about it. However, it's not the final lap of the race yet. We're on lap 11. We're about to head on to 12, so we've got 3 to go. And well, if that was the final lap, that'd definitely be a huge move, but Kieran Smart is just able to out-drag him onto lap number 12, so therefore Bradley now respected the fact that Smart knows how long a run he needs to get back ahead to the finish line, and that's some good information to have, that it's practically the distance to the finish line out of Luffield, where the tow will enable you to get back ahead by about 100th at the finish. But as the top 4 continue to oscillate back and forth, you'll remember Andrew Pike, he fell all the way down the order through that opening instant in the first 4 laps. Well, right now as we ride aboard here, the 57 driver, he's chasing after the Jamie Dory machine there. You can tell by the livery he has on it, the fact that's his face on the back of the car there. And indeed, I'm getting Steve-O vibes, if anybody remembers Jackass from the 2000s. But as they roar the way down towards the braking zone for turn number 4, well, right now coming through, and that's Bradley going around, and Bradley goes sideways, and for Sam Bradley, it's a big incident for him, albeit he'll get the car pointed back in the straight line. But it does look as though there, the 69 driver having a bit of a moment, and as he brings it back together, can he get himself back on the straight and narrow in time? Because he drops down to 9th place, but you'll know there's still plenty of places to go. But looking from them back to the front of the field, it's now Jamie Dory who leads ahead of Andrew Pike and Kieran Smart. Onto the penultimate lap they go. But as quickly as they drop one driver, what you can see here, now you have the battle for fall through to 6th all over the back of it. We have a top 6 fight for victory here. They're all absolutely nip and tuck together, and this is getting absolutely crazy here. And of course, we had Jamie Dory involved in that big shunt down the back straight earlier on. He somehow managed to find his way into this race, as then that's Andrew Pike. He's ejected out of the lead battle, and we can be absolutely fuming at that because he was right in the hunt of it. He'd recovered so well, and for Pike it's all gone wrong. Can we get a quick replay of that? Yes, we can. And what happened to our 57? Well, they headed down towards Maggots then, making his way into the braking zone. Looked all good. Side by side with Winus. Winus loses the car and in the end tapping the side of Pike, and that sends Pike around this. So Winus making an innocent error, and will Pike being the one on the receiving end as a result. So Winus able to restabilise his car, but unfortunately Pike being the one who had to sacrifice his race in order to help out the Track Scotland driver, whether he wanted to or not. But back to the front of the field, back to your live racing, and with your live racing we've got one more lap to go. It's Delman versus Dory at the front. Adam Delman looking around the outside, an important overall win in his championship campaign if he can make it happen. For Jamie Dory, he'll also want this just as much to return to the top step after a long hiatus from it. But you see Nick Clemens and Kieran Smart, the battle for the prime lead right behind, as it's 3 wide all the way down in a staggered formation. Dory leads with what is 4 cars all jostling for position for second place right behind him. So Jamie Dory here trying to hold on as that's all gone wrong, and Adam Delman goes round and Kieran Sharp gets collected with him. So suddenly your lead battle falls apart in the blink of an eye, and Jamie Dory right now is running off into the distance, as is Kieran Smart. And right now the class leaders, well, they may just have this in the tank, as Nigel Stott versus Duncan Rice and Nick Clemens, they're all absolutely squirming for third place here, or a run-up in prime class. They all want to be on that overall podium as well. It's always a huge accolade as a prime driver when you get up there, but will they be able to do so? Well, we'll see, as that is going to be Clemens around the outside of stock all the way to the line. But as our drivers make the way through Woodcock Corner, Jamie Dory will, despite all the drama and all the disaster, he will return to the top step and winning ways here at Silverstone National for the first race of the day, and he'll take victory over Kieran Smart, your prime winner, runner-up overall. And then Nick Clemens outpaces Nigel Stock and Duncan Rice to the finish line for third place overall and run-up spot in prime class. We then had Andrew Pike recover to 6th ahead of Sam Bradley, with Kieran Sharp, Stuart Winus and Matthew Sheraton complete your top 10. Adam Delman in 11th place, and then from 11th to 12th, Phil McDougall as he comes across the line there in 12th. And then we do have a sizable gap of the best part of 14 seconds before we do see the Fisher-Price machine, or the Tiny Tykes car, the 96 there of Jonathan Berry coming across the line, but he's been enjoying himself, and that's what it's all about. He crossed the line then in 8th place in prime, so good job from him. And then we'll have Mark Hughes on his debut take 14th place, finishing where he started, but enjoying a consistent race, with Lewis Mason coming to line 15th, and he will be the last of our top 15 finishers, for which we reverse the grid from, so will have earned himself reverse grid pole position. If we do stick to the top 15 rule, it can be changed when we do have close to 15 cars on the grid if we're slightly above, but that will be at the steward's discretion. And it will be Sam Smith there who finishes 16th, the last lead lap finisher. We did have 2 laps down Matthew Jordan, here he is in the number 19, and he makes his way to the pit lane as well. What a race, ladies and gentlemen, my goodness. Well, that's for race number 1 of the day. And I'll tell you one thing, as always with these legends here at NXTGEN Racing in the Legends Cup, when we lack quantity, we definitely have plenty of quality to go around with the racing. Okay, there are a few altercations, yes, there were some contacts, but all the way throughout, the one key theme being that our drivers are absolutely giving it their all and enjoying themselves. We see our prime winner of Kieran Smart park the car up and decide to call it a day for race number 1. But with that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So race number 1 was full of battling action, and indeed over the 14 laps we saw many a driver fall from the front of the field only to rise back up, and one exact example of that was your race winner, Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing, who in the end, surviving all the chaos of the final lap, took victory by 1.3 seconds over the prime winner of Kieran Smart for Track Scotland. Well done to our class and overall winner. We then can see Nick Clemens taking 3rd place there overall for iRacing Esports. Another overall podium comes his way, and for the number 13 driver as well, it's a run-up spot in the prime class. Crest Autosports' Nigel Stock muscled his way all the way to 3rd place on the prime podium and was unlucky to miss out on an overall podium as well, but he'll be happy with that given how things started. He'll be absolutely chuffed with it. Duncan Wright was 5th for Doble Motorcycles, and what a drive from him as well to gradually come through the field. A very consistent drive, he completed your top 5, and there was Andrew Pike in 6th place. The Sim Racing Collective Esports driver will know that victory was only a few corners away, but in the end it didn't quite work out that way for race number 1 of the day. Sam Bradley took 7th for NXTGEN Green, and it was Kieran Sharp, your 3rd pro driver there for Sim Racing Collective Esports, in 8th place, with Stuart Wynis for Track Scotland and Aztec Race's Matthew Sheraton completing your top 10. Best of the rest in 11th, it was Adam Delman for NXTGEN Green, who will know now he's got to do an absolutely important job in race number 2 of charging his way to victory if he can after the late incident in race 1. And then Phil McDougall was 12th for CXR Project Black, with Mission R's Jonathan Berry in 13th, and then Mark Hughes 14th for the Privateer, ahead of Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, who, if we stick to our rules for the race 2 grid, we will see him take the reverse grid pole position. But remember, it may be changed given the fact we haven't got too many more cars than 15 for race number 2, but that will be at the discretion of our race director. Sam Smith was 16th for iRacing Esports, and it was 2 laps down to Matthew Jordan, the Privateer, who finished the race after almost seeing his car finished as a result of contact into the barriers at Cops Bend. Unfortunately, we didn't see Alan McCain make his way to the grid, so he'll be a non-starter for the iRacing Esports team, and if he's on the grid for race number 2, he'll start from the very back of the grid. So that was race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and we still got 2 more races to come. Next up is our top 15 at reverse grid race, and that will be race number 2, another 14 laps, and we're due to get underway with that in approximately 20 minutes time. But with that, we're going to take a brief breather, but as we do, we'll get a word from our title sponsor, and that is Doble Motorcycles, and we will be back in approximately 10 minutes time for the build up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, you won't want to miss it. We will see you again very soon. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, after an absolutely dramatic ending to race number 1, where it seemed as though it all erupted right at the end in a top 6 battle for victory, where it was Jamie Dory who ran away in the end to victory, and close behind him, prime winner Kieran Smart, with the two surviving where others fell by the wayside. But we now got another 14 laps of racing to come here at the Silverstone National Circuit, and the surprises will continue to come throughout this, no doubt about it. But the big question is, what can we expect in race number 2? And I think the short answer to that is going to be, we can expect anything based on race number 1. Indeed, we saw many a driver who struggled in qualifying, but when the racing got underway, they were able to stay close to their rivals with the power of the toe, and that slipstream absolutely proving pivotal, I should say, not pitiful. Goodness me, far from a pittance in terms of slipstream and straight line speed, but in absolutely pivotal to success, and all the drivers staying close together throughout the race distance. But as we do say hello then, the Twitch chat to Marwa Smith, and hope you're doing well, good sir, and we're doing very well here, thank you, in the commentary booth. And we also say hello to Mark Sykes there in the Facebook chat, and I hope you're doing well, Mark. Well, all drivers here still yet to get themselves fully acquainted with the cars for this second race. In the fact, I think the circuit's got a little bit warmer since race number 1. However, one thing that's definitely guaranteed right now, if race 1 is any indicator of how fast and furious the race is going to be, I think race number 2 is only going to up the ante. But the question is, can we potentially get a word from one or two of our drivers before we head into our second race today? I think we might be able to get a quick word, and I think we might be able to grab a pinch of word with the man who took victory in race number 1, and that being none other than Jamie Dory. Let's see if we can get a patch through to the car and hear from Dory himself. So as we do patch through to the car, Jamie, you got time for a quick word?
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yeah, I've got time. Sorry.
No worries at all. We're wondering if all was okay. Victory in race number 1. It's always a good day when we get to see the man behind the series take victory. How does that feel for you?
A long time waiting, I think, in both my series. So I'll take one.
Well, you've taken one, but surely now you've got to think, I can take another one.
Well, we've got to try for all 3, really. I think it's a patience game round here. It's so easy with the toe. To catch up. It's trying to work out what people are doing and try and be smart with it, really, more than anything.
Well, absolutely fair. And well, with that, I think we're heading straight by looks of things into the race. So with that, good luck for race 2.
Cheers, Paul. Have fun.
So a quick word there from Jamie Dory, ladies and gents, but we are immediately making our way to the gridding procedure. It is a quick run to the grid, and therefore we call very briefly from Jamie Dory. But with everyone on the grid, let's see how they all line up then for our second race of the day. And here is the grid. So it is the top 15 reverse grid in the end, not a full reverse grid. The decision was made to take to the standard rule set of inverting the top 15 finishers from race 1. So it means Lewis Mason lines up on pole position for race number 2 for Aztec Racing, and with that is prime pole as well. Mark Hughes joins him on the front row there, the privateer, who will now have the Graft and the Craft in the 495 to try and take on Mason for the lead, with Jonathan Berry staying third on the grid for Mission R, and well, alongside him will be Phil McDougall at first CXR Project Black. We'll then have Adam Delmont starting this one on row number 3, and as he gets himself set, the NXTGEN Green driver will be very eager to make progress forward after an absolutely abysmal end to race number 1, and Matthew Sheraton will give him company on row number 3 for Aztec Racing. Stuart Winans starts off the full throw of the grid for Track Scotland, and he's in the company of the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Kieran Sharp, with the top 10 completed by Sam Brady for NXTGEN Green, and the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Andrew Pike. But the grid's set, ladies and gentlemen, they're not waited around here, so that's your top 10, but the lights are going on already. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. And as quickly as that, it's lights and away they go. That was a very fast start here. And, well, that's caught a few drivers by surprise. And Mark Hughes being caught out massively there as he drops down the order on the inside line. But Lewis Mason not getting caught out. Oh, no! And that's going to be Berry turns sideways there as it's a bit side-by-side contact with Jonathan Berry. And I believe that was, I'm trying to discern who it was. I think that was Matthew Sheraton coming together. But they survived it just about as the whole field now absconds its way down towards Maggott's Corner. And, well, a bit of a slider for Adam Delmont, but gets ahead of Phil McDougall. That's an important move early on. on, and now he'll tuck into the tyres of Lewis Mason and look to absolutely roar his way onwards. But as they come down then towards the Brooklands into Lutfield complex, well, now it's all going to be about the tussle and turns here between our drivers. We look to the blimp camera, and well, you can't really see the pack there, or blimp too far away, so we apologise for that. We'll stay a bit closer on our cameras, but what we can see is the top three starting to move away a little bit, albeit in full place is Kieran Sharp, and he's trying to drag the rest of the field with him, prioritising his teammate Andrew Pike as they come out to the right-hander of Lutfield Bend, and well, that is going to be lap number 1 in a top 3 that is trying to run off into the distance. Well, Adam Dillon now leads. Oh no, that is into the barrier, and that's going to send cars across the circuit, and that was Mark Hughes, and I believe not Duncan Rays who came into contact with him. I think Sam Bradley got caught up there, but Hughes and Bradley coming together through Woodcock Corner, and well, that is a big upset there. Both of them enjoyed a good start to the race, albeit Hughes lost out early on, but he started to make his way back up the order, but now they definitely won't be making their way forward. But looking towards the front, and Adam Delmont and Phil McDougall fight each other hard here, as we have had Lewis Mason drop down to 5th place. The Sim Racing collective pair of Sharp and Pike, they've both cleared a good chunk of the field. They're continuing to make the way around, and all down the back straight they go, and as they do, well, Mason's 5th, Clemens is 6th, Winus is 7th, ahead of Dory, followed by Stock, and it's Smart who completes your top 10 at the moment, but it could be any which way in that order by the end of this lap, as we do see there McDougall trying to put himself in the midst of all the fighting, or with Sharp up his inside on through Brooklands, but now on the outside through Luffield Bend, and through that right-hander they go. No change there this time, but definitely Sharp making his intentions clear. He wants to be leading this race sooner rather than later. Further back, that is Stuart Winus who's gone round. Oh, goodness me, they're dropping like flies. And also there, that is Matthew Jordan having a big sideways smoke coming out of Luffield Bend. And some of these, I think, being made of their own volition. Others, I think, small taps between their rivals. And, well, with everything that's going on right now, can we get a replay of some of the early incidents? Yes, we can. This was the Sam Bradley Mark Hughes incident. So you'll see Hughes there, gets it slightly wrong, but brings it back together. Coming in towards Woodcock Bend. Was he tapped on the rear? That's an interesting one there, because it looked from one angle he might have been, but I'm not sure about that. Can we get another angle of that? Can we get it from the perspective of, I believe it would have been Winus's car? I don't know if we can. If there was, yes, I think there might have been a tap from Winus's car to the back of Hughes. It was the same camera angle, and that might explain it. I wonder whether there was a distant netco contact there. Well, if so, unfortunately, that has set up a big chain reaction between the two of them. And then subsequently, we had a bit of a moment on lap number 2 for Jonathan Berry. This was coming into the opening corner for the number 96 driver, and as he made his way out of the corner, a bit too much speed. On the exit curve, there was less grip, and the car ejected towards the gravel, but in the end, very quickly turns back around and going racing. And then we did see the incident for both Stuart Winus and Matthew Jordan at the end of lap number 2, where it started off with Winus coming out of Luffield Bend, and I think here this is going to be an error where a bit too much speed and the rear went, and then subsequently for Matthew Jordan, practically the same error as his driver just in front of him, so that explains everything that happened between them. But we come back to live racing as we do. With still more to come. On to lap number 4 now. And Matthew Jordan being passed by Mark Hughes. There's Hughes definitely now starting to get his eye in with the car. Also Phil McDougall there have a big off track and rejoin. And that's going to send him all the way down the order there. That is a big change. As you can see Hughes there, plus also Berry making the way around the outside. A big lock up there for Jordan, who tried to make it work under braking. But in the end, McDougall seeing it coming and put the car right in the middle of the road. Albeit I think he's limping his Phil McDougall in terms of the car. And well, I don't think he's going to be getting that anywhere up to pace that he'd like to. I think that's coming into the pits to repair work, and that's very unfortunate there. So therefore his race now definitely in slight ruin. Meanwhile, one driver who wasn't on the grid for race done 1 due to technical issues with the car, he's on the grid right now, Alan McCain. He's in 8th place, having started from the very back of the grid. He's had a very good start to this race. Good on the man from iRacing Esports, and right now he's looking to make even more progress, albeit Kieran Smart's keeping him company. And Smart taps on the rear there and misanticipating the overspeed in the toe from Woodcock corner. I think Kieran Smart having to be aware of the fact he's gaining a lot more speed than he realises. But from there, it's 3 wide at the front of the field, and it's a Sim Racing collective pair, sandwiching Adam Delmont here. And will it be the reverse Moses manoeuvre? Will both of the TSRC cars look to go ahead of Delmont? Well, one will get ahead. That's Andrew Pike to lead this race now as they head down the back straight. But we are on only lap number 5 here, and as he pulls his way away, well, there you can quickly see he can't pull away because the toe is absolutely huge. A big bump draft there from Adam Delmont onto the back of Pike, and well, as the Warrior machine makes its way down in reference to his driver's helmet, And I wouldn't be surprised there if the fact they do have a number of Mario characters across their helmets at NXTGEN Green. Well, Kieran Sharp does go around the outside to the inside here, so that tap on the rear of Pike's car actually helping Pike out and giving Sharp an opportunity to get an overspeed, but meanwhile forcing Adam Delwant back to third. But he won't mind that, because now as they head on through Woodcock Corner, and well, there Sharp getting a little bit too close to his teammate, almost sent him spearing into the barrier there. You don't bump draft on the corner normally because it unsettles the car massively. But through turn one they go, and it's too wide into the apex. Will it be too wide on exit between the two teammates? Yes, it will. But then Adam Delwant says, okay, my turn to play. Nick Clemens also wants to play an act here. And well, on the outside, that is going to be the 23 of Sharp falling all the way down. And onto the brakes, it is going to be there. Change of foot, but you can see the 23 driver looking around the outside. But I think for Kieran Sharp, just stay on that outside line, he's lost a lot of pace, but it puts him to the back of the field. But being at the back isn't a bad thing. Helps cool the engine down because he hasn't got to run it as hard. And also on top of that, the idea being here with the way they're negotiating this battle, they are constantly jostling and trying to decide who is in the right position towards the very end of the race in order to make the move for the win. But from the top four, Jamie Dory, he's only 1.4 seconds back. Race 1 winner here. He started 15th on this grid for race number 2. And right now up into 5th place, and he is picking up a distant toe for the back of Nick Clemens, who's running in 4th, so therefore he will gradually pull himself into that battle, as will the Crystal Autosport driver Nigel Stock and the Aztec Racing Machine Lewis Mason. Alan McCain is 3.3 seconds back, so therefore he's not quite going to fill the distant toe of the top 2 packs in terms of all the way down to 7th place. But working up with Kieran Smart here, if these two continue to work together, then on paper, the pace that they're showing right now is matching the pack pace for 5th through to 7th, and they may have an opportunity to get into that slipstream if the battle for 5th place starts to become a bit more of a domineering factor in that battle. But again, it's always those questions, of course, who's going to work together, who's not going to work together, and we'll further back Duncan Ray's and Matthew Cheverton. They're also trying to close up to the back of the Smart McCain pairing, and these two, they complete your 10th and 11th places. So it is all right now all about the pacing. The racing does calm down a little bit here. And for our drivers at this point, well, of course, understandably, it does mean their focus now starts to turn on managing the car, managing the tyres. They do have enough fuel to get to the end of the race without issue. They don't need to do any fuel saving whatsoever. The fuel tanks have definitely been filled up to provide them with plenty of fuel in order to have that confidence. But they do need to look after the tyres a little bit, because in these races, these smaller sprint races are only 15 minutes in length or 14 laps. It does mean they do put a bit of tyre wear in, and the natural inclination of the driver is to push the car very hard because you don't need to use the tyres for too long. But they'll also want to get used to the fact they'll need to protect the tyres, because in race 3, which is coming up after this, we increase the race duration by an extra 10 minutes, so we'll go to 23 laps. And in doing so, that is where the tyre life becomes a more pivotal factor. But any knowledge you can get on tyre saving in the shorter races, that will be very valuable going into race number 3, and it can be valuable towards the end of these races as well. But these drivers right now are definitely not saving tyres, because Kieran Sharp and Adam Delwant and Andrew Pike all enjoying an absolute scramble. But behind as they come underneath the bridge, we can see there Jamie Dory now has definitely caught up. So right now it's a top 7 battle as they roll their way through turn number 4 once again. Delwant on the outside to inside here versus Andrew Pike, and as they roll off of the right hand apex here, well, I think they'll be looking in their rearview mirrors. They'll be looking at the timing deltas and noticing suddenly the race 1 winner is with them, and a good number of Pro-Am drivers have been brought into that pack. At the very back of this group, we do have Lewis Mason, who's 1.2 seconds back. He's had a bit of an error, and in fact, it would seem as though for Lewis Mason, his pace has slipped slightly, but he is 1.5 seconds off of that pack. He will be getting a distant slipstream if he can stay with them. The problem is, of course, that the car in front of him, Nigel Stock, will gift him a distant toe, but Stock has the toe of 5 cars in front of him, and speaking of 5 cars, well, suddenly it's 3 at the front, and they're all spread wide here as they come down. Adam Delwant in the middle there in the Poigan, what is lime green NXTGEN Racing Machine. And as he comes on through and out of the hairpin, well, he's still in the middle of the road there. Andrew Pike is trying to hold ahead in the 57 on the inside line. That put him the outside down towards Brooklands Bend. Well, you can see there Kieran Sharp also trying to move through, but then Nick Clemens places bets and puts himself right behind the 2 on the right. There's a little bit of a squirrely moment there for Pike, but keeps it together. A small tap on the back there, but they'll get away from that, and also under braking on the downshift there. That unsettles the car when he has to dump the clutch. And they're coming through the right-hander now to go on to the next lap. Well, that's lap 9. 10's coming up, and after that we'll have another 4 to go. It definitely is a race right now that is really built up to a crescendo here. All these drivers keeping each other absolutely honest. It's fantastic racing action. At any moment it could all change as we ride on board with Jamie Dory. Now, as we ride aboard here with our 5th place driver right in the thick of this fighting, he's got a lot of work to do here, not just in terms of keeping the pace in the car, but he's got to try and anticipate what's happening in front, how's everyone position themselves here, and also keep an eye on what's going on behind as he looks for a potential move. That's going to be very close. Does he get out the inside of Sharp? Yes, he does. He goes for 3rd place here on a dive in towards the hairpin, and well, he's going to put himself free wide. They'll call it exit. As you can see, Clemens is going to go all the way to the outside, and it is going to be the 23 of Sharp right in the middle of the road. Andrew Pike's been pushed along here by Clemens. Everybody's now placing their bets. It really is 2 by 2 by 2, and well, in 3 trains of cars here, Jamie Doreen and his old friend Adam Delmont working together, but he goes deep at Brooklands. That's going to enable Andrew Pike to get back on the inside to the outside of him, but Dory's not going to back out here. He's going to hold that inside line through Lovefield, so the 13 will move back into that 2nd place, but Pike right now showing he's not afraid to hang around the outside, and this is the mutual respect these drivers have built up with each other over several years of racing the NXTCC plus the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup. They know how they all race, so therefore it will feel to them as though it is practically right now. They're practically having a conversation out on the circuit, albeit that conversation being the roar of engines and the squeal of tyres, but the idea being here, they all have so much respect for each other, and at this point it really now comes down to the no to you, to me, and after you situation. But on that final lap, that is where they'll all be dropping the gentlemanly manner, and the elbows will come out there. They'll look to do so, knowing how much room they can give each other. But brilliant racecraft here as they go around, and as they do, well, your top 6 definitely all tucked in. We have lost Lewis Mason down to 7th place here, albeit he's on the back of the number 69 car, Sam Bradley, that's a lap down, hoping that Bradley can pull him along a little bit, but I think Bradley's got some damage on the car, and that damage is in fact making him a bit slower than he would like to be, but I think Mason has sort of got caught up behind because he's bringing Alan McCain, Kieran Smart and Matthew Sheraton along behind him as well, and well, this may not be working out the way he wants it to. In the pit lane, unfortunately, we have had Phil McDougall. The car's been in there for the best part of the last 6 laps for repair work. I don't think that car's coming back out until race number 3. Matthew Jordan, however, he's been into the pits. He's just making his way back out. He'll be classified a lap down, but he's down in 17th place. So therefore, with a full reverse grid, he will be eligible for that reverse grid pole position. But now onto lap number 12, and as we do, a big sideways vote there for Andrew Pike, but he collects it together. But here comes Nick Clemens, here comes Kieran Sharp. They're all scrambling. Jamie Dory falls to the back of this group with Nigel Stock almost there. 2 by 2 by 2 they go, and as they come down to the break-ins, or 3 by 3 I should say, we're rolling the way for the right-hander, and onwards now to the Wellington straight. It is still Kieran Sharp who leads. So a brief moment with Adam Delmont now finding himself being boxed in here, and look at Nick Clemens. Clemens, I think, has decided, right, now's the time to try and position myself to move forward a little bit. He's now looking up the inside here into Brooklands Bend, and the Prime driver, well, he would love to add another overall victory to his series of achievements for this season, albeit it's going to be much harder than it sounds. And through the right-hand left field they go, but he's on the outside there. He will have the greater run of the corner. However, a big slide there coming out of left field, that's not going to help him. That is going to definitely scratch off some of the life of the tyres. However, he will be able to get the tyres back there as long as he doesn't keep overheating them. But up towards 1, in towards Cops, penultimate lap, and you can see there all the drivers continuing right now. They're going 3 by 3 or 2 by 2 in terms of the columns and files, but nobody right now wants to reveal their true hand, as behind we've got a 4-way fight here, also for 8th place with Kieran Smart. Well, he's dropped away a little bit from Alan McCain, the 7th place man in the iRacing esports machine. You can see him there in the foreground in your camera shot. He's trying to pull away from Smart as Lewis Mason and Matthew Sheraton all over the back of this is Stuart Wynis. Well, he's back in 11th place right now. We're distant view here, and he wants to try and get involved right at the end, but that's going to be easier said than done. But as he rolls off the apex there, turns 2 and 3, well, from him, we look back to the leaders here, and the leaders right now definitely getting very tantalisingly close to each other, as no other than Adam Delmont finds himself slightly pincered there between Clemens and Dory, and Delmont and Dory have both lost out considerably on this lap. They fall into the back of this group. Now they may be feeling as though there's an opportunity to get a big surge onto the final lap. But Kieran Sharp here definitely sending a message, and that message is, I think he's here to stay. Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. The final lap of race number 2 is about to get underway. Andrew Pike's got the overspeed, and you can see there, look at Clemens coming with him. So Pike takes the lead as they cross the line, with Clemens on the inside of the Prime leader. He's by himself for now, with Nigel Stock, the 2nd Prime driver, right at the back of this group. But Stock will be watching eagerly here and thinking whether he can spring a surprise. They've also got the traffic of Matthew Jordan just up the road for him. Will he become an element in this one? There's so many questions on this lap to go, but there's Pike defending the middle of the road. Clemens Clemens looking up the inside. Sharp looking around the outside. Nick Clemens takes the lead of the race. And as they roll off, on towards the back straight they go. Well, now it's going to be a drag race here. And the two leaders at the front, they've got no toe to work with. So you can see there, Pike's trying to come across, but Dory covers him off. 3 wide now as they head down Wellington, but Dory's got the overspeed. He'll be able to get a nose ahead into Brooklands Bend, but will he be able to outbrake them to get to the inside of the corner? This is where we'll find out. 3 wide they enter. Dory on the outside. If he can hold that line, but he won't be able to. He runs a little bit deep. That's going to enable Nick Clemens to get to the inside, and Pike's still there with him. 2 wide on the exit they go. Pike with a big slide. Andrew Pike loses it. He collects it together just about, but Nick Clemens here, could he be on course for his second overall win of the season? I think he's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. The rag is waving. The checker flag gets ready to fly, and as it does so, is it Clemens? Is it Dory? And it's Nick Clemens who takes victory in the end by 61 thousandths. The Pro-Am driver does it ahead of the Pro Jamie Dory, with Adam Delmont in 3rd, Andrew Pike 4th, Nigel Stock runner-up in Pro-Am 5th, Kieran Sharp is 6th, Alan McCann will take 7th ahead of Kieran Smart, and it'll be Stuart Wannis and Lewis Mason who complete your top 10. Duncan Rice takes 11th place ahead of Matthew Sheraton, and then it'll be a further 18 seconds before you get to Sam Smith, who will take 13th place here. But my good lord, what a late lunge for the win from Nick Clemens there, and will play that absolutely smart as Smith finishes 13th. Then it'll be Mark Hughes 14th, not the way you wanted this one to go. Jonathan Berry will take 15th there in the rear of your picture, and well, we will then have a bit of time before we do get to Sam Bradley, who I believe has already finished this race, and 16th, and Matthew Jordan, who will be your last finisher, albeit a lap down, much like Sam Bradley, but he will make it to that checker flag, and that's what it's all about as well. And this means he will be your reverse grid pole sitter for the final race of the day, with the retirement of Phil McDougall ruling him out of it, I believe, and putting him to the back of the field. But Nick Clemens, what a end to the race there, and can we get a replay of that final lap? I think yes we can, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get it, and here is the replay of how the final lap played out between our top 6 drivers. Now, as this all began, Nick Clemens, you'll notice here, in 3rd, playing the smart game, working with the Sim Racing Collective pair. I think he'd figured out that both Pike and Sharp were always going to try and dominate the front of the field. They were going to try and make themselves multi-car wide to prevent everybody else from coming on through. But immediately, coming out of Cops Bend, he sees, right, I need to get to the inside here, and I've got to start covering off those positions. You can see Stock a bit further back, doesn't get the run out of Cops. Delmont too far back, Waiting's gone to Wellington straight. Dory, meanwhile, has seen what Clemens is doing and decides, right, I'm going to follow him. Out of the right hand they go. The Sim Racing Collective pair at this point, both on the outside, so now they've got to out-drag Clemens, who's had the better exit, and Dory was always going to help Clemens move along here until he didn't when he cut to the outside. So now it was 3 wide all the way down. But the thing is for Dory at this point, as they headed into the braking zone, beyond that outside, the challenge is you've got to get the grip. But a big slide there for Dory meant that Clemens was in the natural position to inherit the inside line into Luffield Bend, and that meant when Pike came on around, he's got to try and carry all the speed, but a slide there from Pike cost him the speed, cost him momentum, and at that point, all Clemens has to do is hold that inside line all the way through. Dory ran with him all the way to the line, but by the time he pulled out, there wasn't enough length of road, and that is how Nick Clemens has taken his 2nd overall win as a Pro-Am driver for this season. And what a race number 2 to conclude, but credit where it's due to all 6 of those drivers. They absolutely deserve a titanic round of applause. But with that, a titanic race, and let's get us some race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Nick Clemens, your winner overall in Pro-Am class for iRacing Esports by 22 thousandths at the line as it was updated to NXTGEN Racing's Jamie Dory, the Pro class winner, in 2nd. Adam Delmont was 3rd for NXTGEN Green, and he was only a further 10th off, with then 4 attempts to Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, and Nigel Stock completing the top 5 there for Crest Autosport. Kieran Sharp finished 6th in the end, the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver losing momentum right at the finish line, with Alan McCain 7th there for iRacing Esports, and what a turnaround there from not making it to the grid for race number 1, well, in the end the 212 driver making his way all the way inside the top 10. He'll be absolutely pleased with that. Kieran Smart, 8th there for Track Scotland, ahead of his teammate Stuart Wannis, both of them having a bit of a bruise in race number 2. And then Lewis Mason round off the top 10 for Aztec Racing. And Duncan Rice was 11th best rest for Goldwyn Motorsports, what was 4 attempts clear of Matthew Sheraton in their brilliant little battle, with the Aztec Racing driver Indian Fishing comfortably ahead of Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. And there was the privateer of Mark Hughes and Jonathan Berry for Missionar, who completed your top 15. It was a lap down to Sam Bradley for NXTGEN Green, and also the privateer of Matthew Jordan, and Phil McDougall in the end 18th place, with that early retirement for CXR Project Black, not a race number 2 to remember for him. But that means, ladies and gentlemen, with race 2 complete, coming up shortly will be our final race of the day, and it will be our 25-minute feature race, our 23-lapper, and that will bring everything to a close here at the Silverstone National Circuit. So as we step away, we will be back in approximately 10 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 3, and we will leave you with a word from our title sponsor, Doble Motorcycles. We will see you again very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've just about recovered my voice after an incredible ending to race number 2. I mean, my goodness, you couldn't up the ante or get the racing any closer than that. 6 drivers competing to victory on the final lap. And in the end, Nick Lewins taking his second overall win of the season, following on from his win in race 1 at Snetterton in round number 2 of the championship campaign. And now we've got 23 laps of racing to come, I believe. So it means we've got even more absolutely brilliant racing action, and with a full reverse grid as well, we're going to be entering the ultimate higher by the end of the day, and I do wonder the question whether I'm going to be able to go 5 octaves more higher, albeit if I do, I'll probably end up with a full setup at this point, for those of you with a bit of a lyrical preference in terms of music. But as I try to mince my words there, well, Nick Clemens, the man who absolutely delivered, no doubt about it, but the question I've got to ask is, can we get a word with him? And unfortunately, we can't get a patch through to number 13 car at the moment, because if we could, we'd love to hear from him and all the craziness of that battle. But in the end, definitely a battle to be remembered. But speaking of one driver who's definitely going to remember that battle, let's get a word with Adam Delmont, who found himself right in the thick of all the fighting, if he's out there at the moment. In fact, I believe his car's not out there at this time, so we may have to wait before we catch a word with Adam Delmont. I think they might be still getting it out of the garage and into the pit lane, and well, we hope to see it out there in short order. But at the moment, at least, no Adam Delmont at this time, so we will have to grab a word with him when we can. Albeit, we'll keep an eye for him, ladies and gentlemen. But what can we expect then in our final race of the day? Well, 2 minutes before we go to it, it's a 25-minute race, 23 laps as we're to understand it. We may be on 24, depending on the time and the way the wind blows. But we will see what exactly will happen with regards to the race in terms of its length. But more importantly, it is a longer race. There'll be more laps, a full reverse grid, and that always throws up some surprises, albeit we practically had a full reverse grid in race number 2. The point being around that, therefore, is all the drivers will now be acclimatised to what exactly they need to do over the course of the distance in terms of needing to fight their way through the field if they're the faster drivers, or conversely, if they're the slower drivers, try to stay with the lead pack and not fall off the back of that pack at any point. And, well, that will be the plan. But the conundrum that's thrown into the mix is the fact that with a longer race distance, you need to manage the tyres a little bit more. And with that tyre management, well, the thing will be simply lifting off the throttle and braking a bit more smoothly into those braking zones, looking after the car. Those are all the things that are absolutely pivotal to success. But it's very easy saying it on paper and in theory, but it's much more different when you do take it into practice, because you have all the fighting around you. You have the scramble for positions, and of course you do have suboptimal lines every so often, and all of that together means that it really becomes a very tactical race at that, but you never want to lose sight of the cars at the very front. But as we do see Berry Racing there saying, when you put me on stream, can you play the final countdown to a crash? Well, if we were to do that, we would be on our final countdown of our own before a copyright strike, unfortunately, due to the way music is licensed these days, albeit we wish we could potentially could, but perhaps we may have to do that in a compilation at some point in the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup. But at the same time, Mr. Berry, I do also like to think that you do have some very positive moments to drive in, and of course you always bring us a smile as well, so it's not always about the final countdown. And so with that, it's one of those situations whereby I think right now he's enjoyed himself out there, no doubt about it, as we also see Roger Pike there with a rather nice compliment. Thank you, Roger. I really do appreciate it. I don't know how I keep going, to be honest, but I do. And, well, the racing is absolutely fantastic. And as I always like to say, the racing itself may not be real, but the emotions and the physicality is definitely real, and that's what makes sim racing just as real motorsport. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to the grid then for the final time tonight. How do they all line up? Well, this is how they all make their way to the grid. It is going to be none other than our safety car and Mark Sykes there. Well, we do have our safety car and our race director. They are listed as pole sitters, however, they won't be starting on the front row of the grid. They are excluded from the grid. So with them excluded, it does mean that you have Matthew Jordan. He lines up on pole position, and he'll be joined in the company of Sam Bradley, who starts in second. The next gen green driver then is followed up by Jonathan Berry for Mission R in the company of Mark Hughes, the privateer. Sam Smith, he lines up in none other than 5th place, ahead of Matthew Sherverton for Aztec Racing, and then it will be 7th and 8th for Duncan Rice for Godwin Motorsports and Lewis Mason. Behind them on the grid, we've then got Stuart Winus and Kieran Smart. They complete your top 10. The 2 Track Scotland drivers ahead of the Iris Esports and TSRC Esports pair of Alan McCain and Kieran Sharp. Nigel Stock starts in 13th place for Crest Autosport ahead of Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. Final 4 row of the grid is Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green ahead of NXTGEN Racing's Jamie Dory. And last but not least is Nick Clearance. Well, that's the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and in good time as well, with 17 cars make the way to the grid. How they all start this race, how they all end it, it's for all that and more. Fire and lights, we find out as it's lights and away we go for this 23-lap showdown. And well, Sam Bradley gets a better start compared to Matthew Jordan as they head down towards turn number 1. On entry then, Bradley takes the lead, but Matthew Sheraton as well finds himself being swallowed up to a degree by the prams around him. Jonathan Berry gets a lightning start there, moves into 3rd place ahead of Sheraton, and now down towards Maggots they come. But the first time of asking here, this is where they'll all tiptoe the way in. Cold brakes, cold tyres, but very quickly heated up, and we'll further down the field as the big medley comes on down. A bit of a lock up there, that's a sideways moment. That was Lewis Mason there overstepping his boundary, but not for long. We see Stuart Wyness going wide, gets the car back together just about there, survives that. I thought that could have been going very sideways, but Wyness playing the game of catch with the steering wheel and doing an absolutely brilliant job. At Sheraton right now, back at Berry, down towards Brooklands, and as we do see the Tiny Tykes 96 fighting on, and indeed it makes me giggle a little bit for the fact that I can't take that 96 car seriously when it's fighting for position with the googly eyes on it, but I'll try my best to. But as they come on through Luffield Bend right now, with nothing between the drives there, Mark Hughes had a reasonable start as well. There's a big sideways motion there for Kieran Smart, also in front for Sam Smith. Hughes having to be very careful as he tiptoes his way around his rivals. He's keeping on the straight and narrow, but as they come through Woodcock Corner, it's 3 by 4 as they head down towards turn 1 for plenty more. And as he comes down, Lewis Mason then finds himself right in the middle of the road. And well, he's got Duncan Rice on his outside. On the inside of it's Kieran Smart. Oh no! And that's Mark Hughes. Hughes has got around again. I'm not quite sure how he got turned around there, but we'll try and understand very shortly. But it's gone wrong for Mark Hughes after it was going so well. And the rest of the field leaves him behind as they come down in towards Maggots. But through the right hander they come. 3 wide there. And that's going to be Adam Delmont finding himself pinched on the inside with Mason and also Wyness. And well, as they exit the corner now, Stuart Wyness gets the better traction out of all 3 of them and makes his way onwards on down and in towards that braking zone. Well, right now, no change between them as Wyness there holds on, albeit they go out of camera view for a brief moment and hold the phone because that's Sam Bradley made his way back past Matthew Jordan. Matthew Jordan is not letting him go at the front of the field, and well, Jordan, who was struggling in the first 2 races of the day, I think he's just needed a car to work with, really. Albeit I say that as he has a little bit of a slide. As soon as I praise the driver, it seems these days, ladies and gentlemen, the commentator's curse really is real with me at the moment, and well, hopefully it's not going to be a sign of what's to come, but definitely Matthew Jordan, he's found the pace. I think just having Bradley as a target car, almost as if he's got a pace car in front of him, this is giving him the confidence Alliance to take. And well, that tap on the back of Bradley's car there, that little bump draft will definitely have unsettled Bradley slightly. I don't think he'll be too happy about how late in the braking zone that bump draft came, but as they head in towards turns 2 and 3, I think they'll learn from that one. And Jordan taking a look up the inside, they can get away with the bump drafting so long as they keep it relatively clean. And I think Jordan, they're just realising the do's and don'ts, but then again, it's always a good time to learn when you're a newcomer to the grid. And we're coming out to turn number 3 on towards the back straight, Wenton straight there, no foul, no harm, no play, no done. And well, right now things have still certainly got to be done here, and there's plenty more time for them to unfold. Our top 10 separated by less than 1.3 seconds. That's how close it is. They're all in that single camera shot there. If you've got a camera, definitely worth grabbing a photo or two. But you can see, look at that, and that I believe is the number 23 of Kieran Sharp, all over the back of Matthew Jordan, as the iRacing Esports pair of McCain and also Smith both go wide, but that is going to stab Smith into the barrier, and also Alan McCain. They both get speared off the road there. I think McCain in the end getting sent sideways off as a result of a bit of a tussle with his teammate, or at least that's what the camera suggested. Meanwhile, Smith being sent on his way, I think by some contact or secondary contact from behind. So iRacing Esports suddenly dropped out of the mix at the front of the field, but the field continues on here and there's still more to go. We're not going to cut to any replays at this time because we want to see how all this fighting happens at the front of the field. And we'll look at that. Matthew Sheraton out under some pressure here from Kieran Sharp, going around the outside of him, goes a bit deep, and that's going to enable Matthew Jordan to get back on the inside of him there. And again, Jordan may not have the outright pace, but he definitely knows where to put that car, and that's great to see. Now he's got to figure out whose toe he needs to sniff the back off of there. And as they head in towards Brooklands Bend, well, right now for Matthew Jordan, if he can keep this up, I wouldn't be surprised if he's chasing after his first Pram podium in his 3rd race of the season, and that'd be a huge achievement. But as Jonathan Berry, they go side by side with Andrew Pike. Pike playing a very different game here. He's playing it very conservatively as we ride on board with the Sim Racing Collective driver. He's picking his way through the field one by one. But I think for Pike, what he's trying to do here is he doesn't want to get too embroiled in battles, because this pack's been so close together for so long. It's fantastic to see, but normally when you start to get very elbows out and you want to try and force places, yes, you'll gain them, but you cost yourself and the cars around you a lot of time. So therefore, you've got to be smart. It's almost as if you are overtaking traffic on the side of a motorway or the freeway, depending on your preference and nomenclature, in the fact that you want to work with these drivers and you want to gently say to them, look, I'm coming through, which is what Pike's doing here as he puts his way to the outside, tries to find the back of his teammate in the form of Sharp, does so, and by being behind his teammate, he therefore can predict what the car in front's going to do, and he knows how he can get the power down. And that's the thing, if you have your teammate around you, you have somebody who you could use as your pace car or somebody to work with, and then you've just got to find compliance from the other drivers in this pack. But doing exactly that, and Pike now moves his way into third as it's 5 wide for a brief moment there, further on down in the fight for fourth, albeit they all do now settle down for a brief moment. But Adam Delmont trying to come on through, and the Pro Pack that finished towards the front in race number 2, they are now all finding their places as Pike's gone round. Oh no, and that on the XL Luffield bend, but what exactly sent him on around? Something tells me that might have been an error of his own volition, as the 991 there of Lewis Mason also has a big sideways moment, and well, that's coming out of left field. We'll get some replays of those very shortly, and well, with the whole field now heading on to lap number 6, we are seeing a couple of cars drop here and there. I think that might be where drivers are just pushing themselves hard at the moment. I think they are starting to up the ante, but as you up the pace and you up the ante, understandably, what happens is that you naturally end up pushing each other a little bit too hard, and you push yourself too hard, and the car in the end says to you, look, I can't do it, as that's contact between Cheverton and Adam Delmont, and Delmont's round, and with that he gets it back together, but not before Jonathan Berry gets caught up in it, and also Matthew Jordan gets caught up behind. But the biggest loser of all that, Nigel Stock, who in the end had to abscond to the inside grass in order to avoid, ended up in an absolute calamity of a collision. But the number 30 driver drops down all the way to 11th place. So I think right now things are definitely getting a little bit testy, as Kieran Smart now looks to try and move into second place, but Kieran Sharp is 1.2 seconds clear, and if this continues, if they fall away from Sharp, Sharp may be able to run away. And well, he does refer to himself by the nickname, at least the Sim Racing Collector refers to himself by the nickname of Sharpie there, and he's definitely going to be at the Sharpie end of the field in terms of breaking away into distance. And well, right now, indeed, that was perhaps one of the worst puns I've ever tried to make, and well, with that, I'm just going to stop there, as otherwise we're going to need to get the sharpener in order to make those puns even better. But looking on back, that's going to be 3 wide, and that's Jonathan Berry, just gets squeezed to the apex. Oh no! And everyone comes into the scene of the incident and goes round with him, and Nick Clemens finds himself going around, looking in the wrong direction. The field segregates around him, and well, with that, it's going to be the number 13 car that gets itself back up to speed. It's drama here as we head on to lap number 7, and Silverstone right now definitely not taking any prisoners, but what it also has taken is plenty of great replays, and here we go then for some replays at the early stage of the race. This is lap number 2. This is what happened to Mark Hughes into Cops Bend. Made his way into the corner and hit the rear of the Irish Esports car in front, and at that point a passenger in his own car, because the car's got too much speed, and with the knock to the rear of the Irish Esports car, I believe that's Alan McCain's car, in the end causing the rear of the car to come on around. Unfortunate for Hughes, being caught out there by the concertina effect. However, still carrying on. A bit later on, we then did have subsequently the moment for both Alan McCain and Sam Smith. This was a very dramatic one, coming out of Luffield Bend, and it was they made the way out the right hander. The 2-1-2 lose in the rear, and what you'll see is that Smith gets close behind him, McCain losing it, and then Smith doing exactly the same by being too close. In fact, we can get the on board from Smith's view, and let's just listen in. And you see McCain loses it there. Both go to the gravel, and in the end, Smith tries to power out of the car coming loose as a result of following McCain onto the gravel, but no can do, says the car, and in the end going straight to the barrier. A nightmare moment for the pair of them. But then we did also have a little bit later on, this was on lap number 5, and this was for Andrew Pike, and this was at Luffield Corner, just exiting Brooklands, side by side there with Matthew Sheraton. Into the corner they went, and it looks so there, Pike may have lost that of his own volition, not too clear on the camera angle. It was very close between him and Sheraton. If there was contact, it would have been a very light touch, and well, unfortunate if so. And then we saw Lewis Mason get it wrong only a corner later. We then had this for Sam Bradley on lap number 6, and this was into the opening corner. This is where everything started to go a bit wrong. Sam Bradley in the end losed it on entry there. I think he may have accidentally downshifted a bit too aggressively and brought the clutch up, because the rear of the car just snapped loose. Can we get that on board? We might be able to. Can we listen to it? Let's listen in. No, hitting the rear of Jamie Dory's car, and that sent the car completely sideways, and in the end, everyone coming through and not everyone able to react there as it all went wrong for him. And, well, let's return to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because those are the major instances of the opening third of the race. We've still got a long way to go in this race distance, however, as that's a very lonely Nick Clewins carrying on. We have had the retirements of Mark Hughes and Sam Smith, but meanwhile, we look up to second place, and with Kieran Sharp 2 seconds clear, well, right now, unless Sharp falls back into the contention of these drivers, it's a three-way fight for second place right now, and they'll feel as though this is the equivalent of a victory at this point. You can see Smart there in the middle of the road with Matthew Sheraton diving up the inside. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory looking one way then the other, but backs out of it. And I think for Jamie Dory deciding it's not really worth getting too involved here at this point and looking at the bigger picture, which is trying to work with these drivers to catch up to Sharp, who's now 2.5 seconds up the road, given the way Sheraton battled with Smart there, and that cost him, the pair of them, 4 tenths of a second over a single lap, which is a lifetime here at Silverstone National, and therefore they won't avoid to cost each other that much time. As they head on across the line then, looking back, Adam Delmont side by side with Matthew Jordan. And Matthew Jordan definitely doing very well to stay with his pack right now. These 4 drivers of Delmont, Jordan, Stock and Mariah all trying to catch up to Winus, who's 2 seconds up the road. But the problem is they're now fanning out here as they get towards the halfway point of this race. And with that fanning out process, it means they will cost themselves a little bit of time. Albeit Adam Delmont at the front of this field, I think we can have the confidence here that Adam Delmont will start to pull them up to Winus, because Delmont's got a lot of pace in clear air, and he's just got to try and right now make sure he doesn't get interrupted in deploying that pace. Ideally, he would like to break away. However, he's got to bring them with him, then so be it, I think he'll be thinking to himself. But a bit of drama behind, because Jonathan Berry and Sam Bradley, these two fight each other for 6th place in Pro-Am, or 10th place overall. That's going to be Berry looking around the outside of Bradley in towards Brooklands, but he's not going to find it as he cuts back, only to find he's cut back a little bit too late on the draw, and Lewis Mason is also there, but Andrew Pike has fallen behind this group. He was right in the thick of it, but he's had a bit of an instant earlier on in this lap, and well, now Nick Clewins is right there with him. So we don't have a replay of that spin, unfortunately, and well, Nick Clewins now will be trying to work with the 57 driver, and these two I think will feel as though it's not been a race feel they've wanted, but they can still get something out of it if they work smartly together. And remember, if we do have any major instance, we may see the arrival of the safety car, and if that happens, well, that would bunch the field back together and Sonny bring everybody back into contention in the late stage of the race, at least those who are still racing at that point. However, not to wish a safety car, although you can imagine some drivers will be hoping for one further down the order, but it can happen at any time. Although we've been quite blessed this season so far, I don't think we've actually had a safety car in the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, and I think we've only had one safety car in the NXTCC. As hold up, that is Jamie Dory and Matthew Sheraton coming together, and as they come on down and they've rejoined, well, Matthew Sheraton's going to have to take a bit of a rallycross line to rejoin. That's going to put them behind the Delmont, Stock, John and Mariah battle. So that's going to move now 3rd place away for the rest of the field, and it's the fight for 4th between 7 drivers. Well, that's an unwelcome sight to see, because that's not quite worked out for either one of them, but can we understand how exactly that happened? Here's the replay. Now they were heading on down. Can we get a better camera angle to explain it? We might be able to... Oh, goodness me. Jamie Dory in the end coming out very aggressively there. And I think missed time in the way he cut out from behind the car in front of him, Kieran Smart. And in the end not recognising that Matthew Sheraton had a huge amount of overspeed as well. So Jamie Dory, an uncharacteristic error there. I think blindsiding himself, and in doing so hitting Matthew Sheraton. And well, that's not worked out at all for them. And that's put them down. But thankfully it's brought them onto the back of the Adam Delmont pack. So this is for 4th. And with Smart only 3 seconds up the road, if he starts fighting with his teammate for the prime victory of Winus, then they could end up being reeled back. But I can imagine right now that Stuart Winus and Kieran Smart will be looking at where they are on the road and deciding we're not going to fight at all. Not until the final lap. We're just going to try and pace our way away from this, because they get pulled back into this. They'll have Stock, Jordan and Mariah all fighting for the prime podium places and the win. And well, when it's you and your teammate who are in a slipstream pack together, the one thing you don't want to do is cost each other time. As Doug Mariah and Matthew Jordan to the barrier there, albeit Jordan having the shunt to the barrier, Mariah's not doing so. I think the two getting caught up at each other car-wise as they come out of Luffield Quarter. We'll get to see a replay of that in short order, but they're still going on. But Matthew Jordan right now, I think this race that started off so strongly in the first half of the race, was he heads into the second half, it's a hard coming back down to earth for him, and not the way he's wanted it to go whatsoever. As we say hello there to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat, and I hope you're doing well, Katie. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying the race action, the broadcast. But coming on back then to our drivers a bit further down the order, and we can see McCain here still fighting with Jonathan Berry. Berry getting very, very close there on the exit, and Lewis Mason watching this. Well, there's Mason's view from one side, but then you'll see slightly a car coming across him, and well, that's because he's tucked the inside line here, and well, free wide they come into braking for Maggots, and well, in the end, it's going to be Mason up the inside there of McCain, who's made to fall back, but Mason loses it a little bit, and McCain the tap in the rear of him, and Alan McCain goes round as well. That is a bit of a nasty incident there. I think Mason was starting to get a bit loose, and McCain had nowhere to go in the end other than into the back of Mason's car. And well, Jonathan Berry able to break away and put in 7 seconds of daylight between these two. He'll be happy with that. Albeit I think he'll be a bit gutted with how that came out, because he would have loved to have battled a bit more, but it just went wrong there. And I think a mistake of one's own doing for Mason, and McCain just in the end adding a little bit more volatility to the mix as a result of being too close to take evasive action. But that's what happens in this close pack racing. It's all great until it goes wrong, and when it goes wrong, it's normally absolutely spectacular when it goes wrong. But indeed, you just need to look to any series like that, whether it's in the simulator or the real world. If you've seen the classic Mini Cooper racing, where you'll see them go 4 or 5 wide sometimes into corners, and when it goes right, it's absolutely fantastic. When it goes wrong, however, some of the incidents can be absolutely spectacular for all the wrong reasons, in terms of we don't want to see cars smashed to pieces where possible. But right now, speaking of a smashing result here, well, after a difficult race number 2, Trackless Scotland's pair of Stuart Winess and Kieran Smart, they're just running comfortably together as we ride on board. Looking back from your Pro-Am leader of Winess, his teammates right there with him. They will be fighting for the Pro-Am win come the end of this race, but right now both of them playing the game of patience here, and knowing all they need to do is maintain their pace, work together, and Adam Delmont, who sat in 4th, will never catch them, because they can use the slipstream off each other. And we can see there the bump draft as well. Smart pushing Winess along into the opening corner of Cops Bend. He knows at the end of the day they need to continue to move the momentum forward. That last lap for Winess, a 105.71. Smart, a 105.63. Cheverton in a 4th place, a 105.74. So it's only a 10th, but a 10th. Every 10th they can eke this gap out now will be worth a lot more later on in this race, when tyre life starts to become a consideration, and old tired arms and legs will also start to be a consideration as well. Because keep in mind, of course, the drivers at this point in the race, they will now have done a grand total of the best part of 40 minutes of racing, and they still do have another 10 minutes or so to go. That doesn't sound like much, but over a race evening, particularly when it's a hot evening, it definitely has a huge strain on the body. And going in towards Brooklands this time, will Delmont, Dory and Cheverton here, the 3 pro drivers, it's almost the 3 pro musketeers, well, heading out of the corner complexes. Dory moves back into 4th place, but they have dropped Duncan Rye and also Nigel Stock and Matthew Jordan, so they've all fallen a bit further back, and in fact they've all been involved in different incidents. We saw the incident for Mariah and Jordan, but we didn't see the one for Nigel Stock that's dropped him out of this. But we will come back to them where we can and see what happened. In fact, we have a quick replay here. This is how Nigel Stock ejected himself from this pro pack. Goes down to Maggots Bend on the outside. Overturns the steering wheel, something's telling me. Yes, he does. And as he hits the second part of the apex there, the rear of the car just letting itself go loose. And, well, it's such an easy mistake to make, even for pro drivers out there. But our Pro-Am driver, Nigel Stock, as he rejoined, well, here was Matthew Jordan and here was Duncan Ryan. So in the end, he's come back into a Pro-Am pack and now finds himself fighting for 3rd place in the Pro-Am class, when he looks certain to be holding on to it. But very quickly, one small mistake, and he resets all that progress. As we come back to your live racing pictures here, and indeed the sun's gradually setting, so therefore visibility starts to change to a degree, albeit brake markers will still be visible for the most part. But if any of our drivers were using potential shadows on circuit to help them out, well, those shadows definitely will be disappearing a long time ago. You never want to use those as a brake marker where you can help it. But we look back there to Andrew Pike and Nick Clivens, and Andrew Pike definitely having a bit of a sorry shape of a race, but he's still keeping in it to win it. He's running in 10th at the moment, and he's got Nick Clivens right behind him, and these two, they are gradually catching up to Sam Bradley. And in fact, come the end of the next lap, if the pace stays the same, they will be on the back of the NXTGEN green machine that you see there in the foreground of the camera shot, and that'll be for 9th place overall, and there'll be a further 4.5 seconds to Nigel Stock. Not really a place to be gained there for Andrew Pike, other than overall. It's not a pro position, but then again, our pro drivers, they only compete in the overall drivers' championship, so every place they gain is absolutely invaluable. But for our Pro-Ams, it's all about class positions, as there's Nigel Stock. Where's Duncan Rice? Oh, hold up a second. What on earth's happened here? The Goldwyn Motorsport car just goes flying on straight. Well, I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but that's not how you take Maggots corner. But he rejoins there. Well, whatever's happened, he's been able to get the car back under control. The Nigel Stock pulls off the road. Was there contact between the two of them? Something tells me there might have been, because Nigel Stock to go out wide like that, I think might be to give the position back. Let's take a look back. Well, that's a lot of drama. So this was coming out of Cops Bend, exiting the corner, and well, we can see the Goldwyn Motorsports car comes across, stock right behind, coming down. Oh, a nasty little pinch tap there on the back of the Goldwyn Motorsport car, and that explains why Nigel Stock decided to immediately chuck the car off the road, coming out of the hairpin in order to make sure that Race took the place back. Well, great respect being shown there. Just the smallest of taps. He got too close, too late before he pulled out, and that is why we saw that tap, and Nigel Stock, knowing that he's got to give the place back and doing so immediately. The stewards will appreciate that, and so will Duncan, albeit they'll both be frustrated because they have let Nick Clibbins through and also Sam Bradley, but still at the end of the day the places were readjusted as best as possible. But with that, what it now means is that Andrew Pike is now up into 7th place. Albeit he's got a pair of Prams fighting behind him for their class position for 3rd place in class. Clibbins ahead of Sam Bradley, but Pike right now will know the next target is Matthew Sheraton. The only problem is that Sheraton, with Dorian Delmont just in front of him, they are all 14 seconds up the road, and 14 seconds in 6 laps remaining, shortly 5 laps remaining, while our race leader comes across the timeline, which is now. That does mean, unless there's a safety car at this point, or suddenly there's a lot of drama at the front of the field, this may be as far as Andrew Pike goes. But to be fair, it's been a good journey, and well, I think it's one he gives himself a pat on the back for. Sam Bradley continued to fight with Clibbins there. Well, they're really taking the centre stage right now. We need to talk more about them, because they're constantly oscillating back and forth. Clibbins here on the outside through Woodcock Corner, Bradley on the inside, but of course Clibbins does have the toe there of Pike, which he'll use for a brief moment until he gets crowded in behind the Sim Racing Collective car. So into turn 1 they go. Bradley's still on the inside. He's not giving us up without a fight, but then we can see Clibbins there just holding the outside line, carries more momentum, and Pike will continue to give him the toe there. I think that'll be repaying the favour of the two of them working together earlier on to bring both Pike and Clibbins up to this position. And it really is one of those situations as well where drivers do form temporary friendships on the circuit, which is if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or if you give me the toe, I'll give you my toe, on the basis that if we help each other out, we move forward, and well, we'll return the favour. But down the Wellington straight they come, and Bradley right now in the double draft here will very quickly catch back up. You see that overspeed there. Sonny injects a lot of speed in top gear. However, will he go for the move here in towards Brooklands? Yes, he will. Clemens goes a bit deep, and he tries to muscle his way back to the inside of Love Field. He'll get it this time. I think Bradley was of two minds there. He wanted to close the door, but Clemens was going to go for it. I think Sam Bradley trying to see what Clemens will do in such a scenario. Will he lunge it? Will he let it go? In that instance, Clemens did lunge it a little bit there, albeit fairly. He didn't force it too hard because the door was left open, but I think Bradley just trying to get some information out of Clemens right now. These two are used to racing each other in touring cars, less so in Legends machines, and therefore that's a different discipline. Further on back, oh no, and the Tiny Titans car's lost its front bumper, and also the bonnet cover there, the cowling, it's going to come into the pit lane, and that might be all said and done for Jonathan Berry. What's happened to him? Here's a replay quickly coming out of Luffield Bend, and at the time he had the 2-1-2 of Alan McCain right behind, loses the rear of the car, catches it again, on the exit curve, has to catch it a third time, but third time is unlucky this time, and into the barrier, and Jonathan Berry's race is brought to an abrupt pit stop. As he heads on down, that'll be repair work to be done. But still, coming back to your live racing pictures, we've still got more racing as the sun comes back out for a brief moment. And Nigel Stott, Alan McCain and Lewis Mason there, they're all fighting over 6th place in Pro-Am. And well, it's McCain on the inside there, holding on to it for now. But Stock and Mason try to push each other along to get back at McCain. But under braking it, McCain will have that place for now. You can see Matthew Jordan is only a second behind. He may yet make a late guest appearance in this battle. And well, if so, he'll be enjoying that. No questions asked. But the front of the field, the man who's leading, he has lost a bit of a race lead. He's dropped his pace to a degree. Kieran Sharp, well, he's still lapping the 105.81s. In fact, I say that, and he set his personal best on that previous lap, 105.81. It must have been on previous laps, because that gap between himself and Kieran Smart and Stuart Winus has come all the way down to 2.2 seconds when it was 3 seconds. Still, we will have to see, because Smart right now, Pro-Am leader, he has swapped with Stuart Winus off camera. These two are still going back and forth. They have got 2 more laps to go after this one. And then you have got a sizable 5.5 second gap before you do get to Adam Delmont, who we look from the rear of as he rolls his way through the 5th corner. As he does the 37 driver here. Well, the key point being, and what he's trying to do at this point is simply now try and get Sheraton and Dory to fight each other as they head on to the penultimate lap of racing. But you can see Sheraton and Dory, they both know what the game is. They're all used to this, which is they won't want to scrap each other. They'll want to keep bringing Delmont into the fight. Dory then tucking into the toe of Delmont. Sheraton going on to the inside. Dory backing off there just in the nick of time to avoid tapping the rear of Delmont on turning, but rolling off the apex, and through they go. And Sheraton now getting the better line. Dory tucks back in behind the pair of them. So they'll both get the natural overspeed. Here comes Sheraton looking one way. Taps the the rear of Delmont there. That was very close to going around for Adam Delmont, and Shepperton giving a bit of a love tap on the back, a bit of a cheeky one at that, and Jamie Dory backing off entirely. I think he saw it happening and decided, okay, I don't want to be part of that in case they take each other out. Well, speaking of takeout right now, the one thing you don't want to do in motorsport is take out your teammate, and Winus and Smart, the two Track Scotland drivers here, 2 seconds off the back of Kieran Sharp. That gap is not coming down, it's staying stationary on an average of 2.1 seconds. Well, Winus back ahead, but now is coming up the final lap. And of course, now that the final lap comes up, this is where you want to be leading when you complete the next one, because that's where you'll see the checkered flag. And now we can imagine that Smart and Winus may take the proverbial gloves off for a brief moment, albeit they'll still race fairly. But I think both of them will now really start to want this, and we will see what happens here for the run-up spot overall, and also the Pro-Am win, as it's going to be a bit of a poor run into the corner there for Kieran Smart. Completely misses his turning point, runs very deep, very sideways as well. That was more sideways than straight coming through the corner, and up towards turns 2 and 3 he goes. Well, as he heads onto the brakes this time around, he's going to be very far back, but can he get a good run coming out of Maggots and Aintree? The answer may be yes, he could potentially do so, and in fact he actually gets a razor sharp run out of there. 4/10 is how far back he exits, but look at the speed he's gaining here as he powers his way along. We ride on board here with Kieran Smart, and we're getting closer and closer. He's going to look up the inside here on the brake, and the two teammates will go for it. He'll go all the way in. Winus will let it go deep, and well, in fact, Smart absolutely nails it to the braking point. I think he'll get this done. Delmont versus Shepperton versus Dory. That's Adam Delmont brings Shepperton past Dory, and Adam Delmont trying to hold on to 4th place, but from then we've got to come back to your race leader because he heads through the final corner. For Kieran Sharp, it's been a flawless race number 3, and with it, he'll come through to take victory ahead of Stuart Winus, who is your winner in Prime, and run up overall ahead of Kieran Smart. It's a 1-2 for Track Scotland in Pro-Am. Adam Delmont will come home in 4th, just ahead of Jamie Dory, and Matthew Sheraton being outpaced by Dory to the finish line there by less than 11 thousandths. Andrew Pike will hold on to 7th place here as he heads towards the line. Not the result he wanted in the final race today, but still good recovery drive there as far as he could go. Nick Clemens rounds off the Pro-Am podium, 3rd place in class, 8th overall, with Sam Brady and Duncan Rise completing your top 10, and Rise their 5th in the Pro-Am class, his best result of the evening, and a well done job there for the Goldwyn Motorsport driver. When it was all going so wrong, in the end he made it go right. Lewis Mason was 11th ahead of Nigel Stock and Matthew Jordan, as they finished practically side by side at the finish line there through to 13th place, and then it will be to a further 13 seconds back that we have Alan McCain, the last of your finishers, all of our finishers on the lead lap, as he comes home 14th and 9th in class. And we did have the unfortunate retirements of the Prime drivers of Jonathan Berry, Mark Hughes and Sam Smith. But as our race winners, and indeed all the drivers, make the way towards the pit lane, well, on their cool-down laps there, Kieran Sharp, knowing that with race 1 and 2 not quite going the way of TSRC, well, in the end, that they had to have something go right today, and absolutely nailing it. When it went wrong for his teammate, well, Kieran absolutely bringing it together and making sure that his teammate Andrew Pike has something to smile about. But as they all head into Parc Ferme, well, Adam Delmont a bit further behind there, and fending off a good friend and close rival on circuit, Jamie Dory, and Matthew Sheraton in the end being made to settle for 6th place. But you've enjoyed that battle, and the 3 drivers absolutely giving it the roll for the run-up spot in the Pro class. But as they all come into the pits, we also do have Duncan Rise heading on down. We've also got some donuts being done there by Nick Clemens, and I believe the 57 of Andrew Pike. Well, he's always got something to smile about, as Andrew, I can tell you one thing, always a nice guy to chat to. They're enjoying themselves there, and indeed kicking up a bit of a dust storm or a smoke storm. But as everyone heads into the pits who enjoys the donuts, well, we're going to leave you with those images, ladies and gentlemen, and take you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. So after a brilliant 25 minutes racing, or 23 laps in totality, we saw Kieran Sharp take a victory for the Sim Racing Collective Esports by 2.6 seconds over Stuart Winus. For Winus, it was a Pro-Am win and leading home a 1-2 in class, and also a 2-3 on the overall podium ahead of teammate Kieran Smart. And what a run from them, avoiding all the drama and the difficulties of race number 2 to return to the top for race number 3. Adam Delmont was 4th for NXTGEN Green, ahead of NXTGEN Racing's Jamie Dory, who round off your top 5. Aztec Racing's Matthew Sheraton right in the hunt for 4th place, but losing out on the final lap there to fall and settle for 6th. Andrew Pike was 7th, a further 13 seconds behind, but the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver made his way up through the field after an early incident put him all the way to the back, but 7th was the furthest he could go, and he achieved that very much so. From the Sim Racing Collective Esports 57, it was the 13 from iRacing Esports and Nick Clemens in 8th, who followed him on home, and Clemens there taking the final spot on the Pro-Am podium. Well done to him. Head of Sam Bradley by 3 seconds, and then for the NXTGEN Green driver as Goldwyn Motorsports is Duncan Rye, who completed your top 10. Lewis Mason took best to rest in the 11th at Aztec Racing, completing the Pro-Am top 6, I should say, with Nigel Stock in 12th, ahead of Matthew Jordan. And behind the Crest Autosport and Privateer drivers, it was Alan McCain, last year lead lap finishers, and final finisher of the race for iRacing Esports in 14th. 4 laps down, he will be classified as a finisher, despite finishing the race in the pit lane, was Mission R's Jonathan Berry. And then from the 15th place finish, we had the 2 retirees of Sam Smith for iRacing Esports and Mark Hughes, the Privateer. Several laps in, but unfortunately both of them come into late arrears. And that concluded our final race of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, what a third race. Races 1 and 2 were absolutely top-notch, and race number 3 taking the cake with it. And whilst all of our racing action may come to a close, well, of course, we do have the consideration, what do our drivers have to think about all the racing? Well, for all that and more, we've got some post-round interviews coming up in approximately 10 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you again very soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And this evening, we've got 3 interviews lined up. We're going to be kicking off with our man who took victory in race number 1 in the Pro Class and overall, and also took Pro Class victory in race number 2. And we'll also finish on the Pro Class podium race number 3. It's going to be Jamie Dory. After whom, we'll then head to a fellow Pro Class driver, Adam Delmont, who today couldn't quite make it a victory in Class overall. But after a difficult race number 1, found his way back to an overall podium race number 2 and just shy of it in race number 3. But we then come to a Pro Class driver in the form of Lewis Mason, who we heard from earlier in the day, and we get to hear his thoughts on the racing now that it's all concluded. Without further ado, we bring Jamie Dory into the interview room. Good evening to you once again, Jamie, and now that all 3 races are complete, I mean, what a trio of races. Silverstone, we may not have had that many cars on the grid, but we had plenty of brilliant racing, and you found yourself right at the front of most of it.
Yeah, not a bad night's racing, eh? It's a good track and car combo. So no complaints on my part. Put it that way.
Oh, most definitely. No, I don't think anybody could complain with the quality of the racing. But for yourself, a circuit you've previously gone quite well at, not just in Legends, but in NXTGEN. Tonight, however, qualifying, not the way you wanted it to start. 9th on the grid. I mean, what happened in qualifying?
To be honest, I never really had a tow. My teammates aren't here tonight. So I was just trying to pick up what I would call scraps. It was just trying to get as much tow as possible through people who are working together. To be honest, qualifying wasn't really important due to the fact that I knew how strong the tow was. So as long as you can make it around the first lap and get the cold tyres out the way, it's just a patience game, really. I mean, all 3 races was trying to wait until the last 3 to 5 laps, similar to an oval race, and then do the push. So, yeah, it was just chilling and waiting for the action to unfold.
Well, good perspective there in terms of qualifying and going into the race. And as the action unfolded in race number 1, you gradually picked your way forward. And towards the end of the race, of course, fighting at the very front when it came down to the final 5 cars for victory. Then it was 3, then it was 2. I mean, you must have been feeling as though race number 1, the victory was certainly on.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was looking at the people around us, and it was going to be tough. But it was also it's being in the lead position. The only advantage is you get to pick and choose tow. So I always drive in the rear view mirror, so to speak, to try and give the car on the outside the tow, to try and put them in a contention to make the side-by-side happen, to slow both drivers down, me get a good exit, and try and increase that 10th, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, to try and make the tow as minimal as possible at the end. And then when I saw cars spinning and touching and things, I was like, okay, it's getting less. And then eventually I could pick my own route on the last lap to basically avoid being towed.
Well, you absolutely picked the right route to take that victory in race number 1. A huge achievement there. Race number 2, meanwhile, more of the same, albeit for the most part of the race, a top 9 fighting for the win. But when it came down to the last couple of laps, a top 6 fighting for it. And you were mentioning to me briefly between races 2 and 3, a missed timing on the run for victory.
Yeah, so, yeah, like I said, that was all pre-planned. On the final corner, if you were on the outside, you just couldn't get the traction. I know the natural racing line progresses to the outside, driver's left, but there was just mid-corner on throttle until the racing line naturally progressed over there. There was no traction. The car you had to be so progressive with the throttle, where if you held the inside line, you may not have the initial run, but as the track sweeps right to the start, to the timing line, you had the momentum and the toe comes into effect. So I knew going into the left-hander prior to that if I held it around the outside where there was loads of grip, I'd have the inside, and that was the plan. I lifted off the throttle with regards to Nick, because I was like, I don't want the side-by-side draft to bring him back into play, and I saw Adam come in. So I lifted off the throttle for about half a second and lost the lead by 2/100ths. So yeah, it was just a driver miscalculation.
Well, an unfortunate miscalculation, but still a win in the pro class, just not quite a win overall. And then race number 3 comes along. I mean, you're starting from the very back of the grid, but I mean, the opening 5 laps, bar 1 or 2 drivers getting ejected on lap number 2, it was incredible. The top 15 all within 1.5 seconds of each other, and you're just gradually picking your way through. I mean, what's the tactic, or what's the mindset you have to weave your way through everybody?
To be honest, I've never been much of a qualifier. I love a hectic start of races, whether it's touring cars, GTs, legends, anything. I love the close quarters. I love just trying to do, and this may stay with me for the rest of my racing career, a Lightning McQueen where he's just sweeping through the field. It's just knowing how big the car is, and that's what racing's about in my eyes. It's close, and because I enjoy that and I've done it for so long, it's just where I'm happiest. I don't like just sitting at the front leading races. I like to battle, it's in my element and what I know, so I enjoy it.
Oh, definitely. It shines through in your racecraft and also the way you talk to me, and I could hear that happiness in your voice. 3 solid results then from today, and with those 3 solid results, particularly that 5th in the final race, just battling with Adam Delmont there as well, it means you go into our slight break week, if you will, because we've got no racing next week. It's not an official break, but you go into it on a high, and next up is Cadwell Park. How are you feeling for a trip to a very narrow circuit?
Yeah, so to be honest, Cadwell isn't one of my favourites, and I don't even own it yet, so it'll be interesting to see what goes on, really. We'll have to wait and see. So it is what it is. I mean, after last week in Knock Hill with the wheel issue, I didn't have a very good result there, but hopefully Cadwell will be better.
Well, we've got our fingers crossed for you, and by the sounds of things, your wheel issue has been resolved, or is that still with you?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it was an iRacing update thing, but yeah, that's better. So,
oh, fantastic. We've got our Jamie Dory back, ladies and gentlemen, which is what we love to hear right at the full peak of his pace and performance. Well, with that, Jamie, just as we do let you go, as always, is there any way you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
The usual, Paul, yourself, everyone who races, everyone who watches, everyone who contributes to it. It's this same old people, you do a stellar job, and hopefully, we're trying our hardest so your voice goes one day, and that'll be the day I can turn around to the kids and go, yep, I've made it in life.
Oh, I love it. I'll hold you to that. I'm sure that day will come one day, although, goodness me, not for a few years, I hope. Goodness me. Well, Jamie, it's been a pleasure having you join me. Well done your results this evening, and thank you for your time in the interview room. Upwards and onwards to Cadwell Park, my friend. We'll see you there.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good evening.
So hearing it there, ladies and gentlemen, from Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing, and always positive he is. And it's so good to hear, firstly, that the issues he's been having with his sim racing equipment have been resolved, and we've got to the bottom of those, and we've seen him back on the spirits after a difficult time at Knock Hill 2 weeks ago. And indeed, at Knock Hill, I can tell you one thing, for the sound of his voice, when I spoke to him in the build-up to it and after, just was not happy. But here at Silverstone National, you can hear it in his voice, the happiness. He's back to his normal self and back to his full flight racing pace. Qualifying, he wasn't too concerned about. He mentioned he's more of a racing driver rather than the qualifying driver, but he knows how to wind his way through it. And using the Lightning McQueen analogy there of zip-zapping his way between cars, particularly in race number 3, but even in the earlier races. Race number 1, absolutely nailed it. Race number 2, unfortunate just to mistime his run to the finish line to try and pit Nick Clibbins to the post, and then in the Pram driver taking home the overall victory, but Dory still taking home the highest of the pro finishing positions. And in race number 3, mentioned there about the tussle through the field, bit by bit, and enjoying the race and still with good old friends and rivals of Adam Delmont, Matthew Sheraton, to name a few. And when we head to Cadwell Park, it's going to be new to him, the circuit. Indeed, it'll be new to many a driver out there, and that's going to lead to the intrigue in terms of who will get to grips to it the best, because it's a very different circuit to most of the circuits we've visited so far. A very tight, a very narrow circuit, and also a very undulating circuit, and one that has earned itself the nickname of the English Nürburgring, if you will, amongst others. But we'll see how he gets on there in 2 weeks' time. But then coming to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the time of now Adam Delmont to join us in the interview room, and we'll get to hear his perspective on some great racing, no doubt about it. Indeed, it's never a dull day when Adam Delmont is on the grid, and let's bring him on in into the interview room and hear his thoughts. Good evening to you, Adam, and well, what a round of racing for so many today, yourself included. No wins, unfortunately, but coming close, particularly in races 2 and 3. But it looks like you had a lot of fun out there all the same.
Good evening, Paul. Yeah, it was obviously I've been, bumped out of good positions quite a few times tonight. So, a bit disappointing in that respect, but still, fantastic racing. Really enjoyed the racing itself. Just a little bit of frustration, especially, was it race 1? Got in the lead, bumped out, dropped all the way at the back, got all the way back to the front again, just to get taken straight back out again. Like, oh, man.
Oh, goodness me. I can imagine the emotional roller coaster of that, going from despair to happiness, back to despair in a very short order. I mean, how do you, as a driver, recover from that? Because you've thrown so much energy into race number 1. I can imagine when you got around to race number 2, part of you saying, you know what, I just give up at this point. Another part of you still probably going, I've still got to go for it.
No, you still got to go for it. It's just the way it is. It's just got to keep going till that fat lady sings, mate. You never know. People can crash, and you can, as I proved in race 1, you can sometimes get back up the sharp end. So yeah, you've just got to have a strong mindset, and yeah, you might be frustrated and annoyed at the time, but you just focus it into driving and just go for it, mate.
Oh, well, absolutely fair, and that racing spirit definitely shining high. And with regards to the circuit as well, the Silverstone National Circuit, a circuit that you seem to go very well at, qualifying in second. I mean, the slipstream was always a big factor, to be fair, but for yourself, it looked so for the most part you nailed it in qualifying.
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time on my own in qualifying, to be fair. I think I managed to hook up one decent lap that was with a bit of tow on it. And then I found myself towing others more than getting towed, to be fair. So, I think if I'd have hooked up a proper lap with someone in front, I definitely could have been, rivaling Kieran. By my lap times and optimum lap times, I was right there to be with him. But I just couldn't hook up the lap when there was someone there that I could use. So, it was a little bit of my fault and a little bit of just being out of place, kind of. But P2 round here, I was never that bothered for trying to, make 100% certain of trying to go for pole, to be honest, Paul, because it's a very draft orientated circuit. So nobody's really going to get away unless the cars behind are really battling with each other. But there's only a couple of people that tend to do that early in races, so everybody else kind of realizes that the kind of car and the best way to race this car is to work together as much as you can, because you're all so close and the draft's so strong. You're never going to get the move for P1 and stay there, really, if everybody's doing that kind of driving. So it keeps it live. It keeps it fresh and what's the word? I can't think of a word right now, mate. I'm still a little bit pumped, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though, with regards to the way the racing plays out there. And, well, putting more of the focus into the racing and working with other drivers. I mean, it didn't quite go right in race number 1, as you mentioned. Race number 2, however, a really solid run all the way up to 3rd place, and that 6-way fight at the end of the race for the win. I mean, we heard from Jamie only moments ago saying he mistimed the run on Nick Clibbins. Something tells you for yourself, you just found yourself in the wrong place on the final lap to try and go for the win.
Yeah, I mean, that race 2 was pretty special, wasn't it, to be fair? That was amazing. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed that. Coming into the last 2 or 3 laps, I was trying to position myself for to be in P3, P2, but on the last lap, coming down the back straight. No, second to last lap, sorry. I found myself in the middle of the track with 2 cars at my left, 2 cars on my right pushing each other, and they just flew past me. So I ended up dropping to 4th, maybe 5th, which is a little bit, the toe's strong, but it's not that strong. So I got a little lucky off the last corner, and I'm not sure if it was Kieran that I saw him just lose a little bit of traction coming around the final corner, which allowed me to just hook up his inside. I think if I'd have had another couple of meters, I think I would have snatched that. But yeah, I was conscious of Kieran being a bit sideways. I was a little bit on edge of breaking traction, so I just couldn't get my foot down as much as I wanted to and as early as I wanted to maybe claw that extra meter or two. But yeah, hell of a finish. I mean, as I came beside of him, and I'm sat rocking back and forth, trying to get on.
Oh, goodness me. Well, like you say, I'm very excited to enter race number 2 and rocking back and forth, wheeling the car on. And in race number 3, an interesting race for you because, as we mentioned to Jamie only moments ago, the top 15 in the opening 5 laps separated by no more than 1.5 seconds for the most part. But then we had a few incidents that really split the field up. And in the end, your race was ready for 4th place overall on the road. I mean, your perspective on that, because you got to enjoy a great fight with Jamie and also Matthew Cheverton. But something also tells me that as well as frustrating moments where, after a certain time, you can't go any further up the road unless there's some drama or a safety car.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to be fair, race 3 I actually had a really, really good start, Paul. I worked my way through to the front, I think 4 or 5 pretty quickly. Found myself just positioned in the right place at the right time to just work my way through. And then was it the last corner? Somebody just hit me from behind. I haven't seen it yet, but somebody gave me a whack from behind, which took me out of that fight for the lead again. And after, a bit of fighting back to try and get back, I could see Jamie and Matt and everybody in front. And I think Nigel was helping me by just giving me a shove along. Because he was trying to work back up to that pack as well. And I saw a bit of commotion on the straight. Jamie, I think, was involved in a bit of an incident with Matt. And it allowed me to get actually involved in that pack. Kieran had been allowed to drive off up the road, fair play. That's a really good result, and to be that far ahead, fair play. But yeah, I think then me and Jamie were just trying to work together to push up to the top 3, or at least 2nd and 3rd, because Kieran was a bit too far up the road by that time. But yeah, a little bit maybe too much fighting within the 3 of us early on. Just halted his progress, mate. So I think with about maybe 4 or 5 laps to go, me and Jamie were just trying to take it in turns to shove each other along, and it was like, we were in chat, and it's like, we're not going to catch these, are we, mate? We're running out of time. So then that were it. Then we just focused on just trying to maintain 4th and 5th, keep Matt behind us, and go for it on the last lap, essentially. And the last lap came, and that was it. Then we were like, right, it's on. And we just, we the last lap was an out and out, and yeah, we crossed the line pretty close. I didn't know if Jamie had actually beat me to the line, to be fair. I was waiting for the result to update, because I was like, I'm sure he beat me. But I managed to sneak him, so bragging rights for me.
Oh, 100% bragging rights for you. And with these results today, albeit not quite the results you necessarily wanted, particularly race 1, but it does mean, I believe, heading into round number 5 in 2 weeks' time at Cadwell Park, you are going to be our overall championship leader. Your thoughts on the season now after 4 rounds?
Yeah, going pretty well, mate. I mean, I've not seen the points. Obviously, the people have been a little bit busy, so I've not seen the updated points. I know I was leading into round 2. At the end of round 2, sorry. Round 3, I had a decent night, but involved in an incident in race 2 last round, which was a no point scoring race. So I wasn't sure on the situation with points going in tonight, but obviously I think me and Isaac were the closest to fighting for the top, and I think Kieran's pretty close behind. So it'd be interesting to you know, to see what the points difference is with Kieran, because Kieran's had a good night tonight. Isaac's obviously going to have lost quite a few points tonight, but I'm sure there's a drop round, so he will sneak back into the fight, I'm sure, once that drop round's taken account for. So yeah, I've just got to keep plugging away, mate. What I do need to do is try and stop. Well, it's easier said than done. If you're getting, you know, nudged from behind and spun round, it's not a right lot you can do about it. But, you know, maybe just try and be a little bit more visual about where people are, and, you know, if I have to concede a position to ultimately to save myself from losing many, then I might just need to maybe look at that a little bit more moving on, because, as you know, you can be leading right up till the last round or two, and you know, all it takes is one real bad night, and that's it. You can be completely out of the fight. So I've just got to keep trying to get those top 5 finishes, mate. Top 3, top 5 finishes.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and that consistency could prove pivotal as the season heads towards its conclusion. But with that, Adam, speaking of conclusions, we're going to start concluding it there. But just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yes, mate, as always, yourself for the fantastic broadcasts. As I always say, I do love watching them back. Jamie and everybody that organises these things, you know, for us to do. My teammates and all our official sponsors, mate, and that's about it, buddy.
Well, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview, as it always is. Well done on the results this evening, and well done on the championship charge. Plenty more to come in the weeks ahead, and we look forward to seeing how you take on your rivals. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, my friend, and we will catch you at Cadwell Park.
Thanks very much, Paul. Good night, buddy.
Good night. So hearing it there from Adam Delman, putting everything into perspective today, enjoying the racing, no doubt about it, but also a bit gutted about the results that went away from him race number 1, and really talking there about the mix of emotions of being sent all the way down the order at the start of the race to recover all the way up to the lead battle, only then to be pushed all the way back down the end of the field, all the way down to a 11th place finish. With that roller coaster ride, and not letting it get to him going into races 2 and 3, and giving himself the emotional strength to push onwards there, and with it a 3rd place over in race 2, a 4th in race 3, and till now there as well the missed opportunity perhaps to work together sooner with Jamie Dory and Matthew Sheraton to chase down 2nd and 3rd overall, which went the way of the Track Scotland pair in the end. But all in all, he's enjoyed the racing. He knows that every round is precious and every point is pivotal, and heading towards Cadwell Park, there's still more work to do for the NXTGEN Green driver as he heads into that round, we believe, as championship leader. But then coming on to our final interview of this evening, ladies and gentlemen, many of you have been waiting for him, and it's going to be none other than the turn of Lewis Mason very shortly as he gets set to join me in the interview room, and we're going to be hearing from the Pram driver here and his perspective on the racing today, as we did catch him, of course, earlier on. But now let's hear from him in full, and he joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Lewis. And well, we spoke to you prior to the racing today, and you were saying that perhaps you weren't fancying your chances at Silverstone National, but on reflection, a decent set of results, particularly in races 2 and 3, 2 6th places in the Prime class. It's not been a bad evening for yourself.
Yeah, it didn't go too bad. Had a couple of incidents with a couple of people, but apart from that, yeah, some good clean racing.
Oh, indeed. So actually brilliant racing between yourself and many a Prime rival out there. However, starting with qualifying, not the qualifying session you wanted, 16th place on the overall grid. I believe the last of our valid lap times set by drivers out there. What went wrong in qualifying?
I was just struggling to keep it on the track. I was either going wide at Cops or cutting a bit too much for either Luffield or Brooklands, one of the two. And yeah, either that or I was just doing slow laps. It was just a mixture of the three.
Well, qualifying wasn't really the place to score big, but to be fair, as our other interviews have said, qualifying not that important. Let's talk racing. Race number 1, a bit of a dramatic race for yourself. 15th place finish in the end, 9th in class. Everything seemed to not go quite right.
Yeah. I think I was involved in a couple of incidents that race with a certain little Tykes car, which didn't help. But yeah, it was a good laugh after that. Just battling with a couple of people that you knew that you could battle with and trying to work together to catch more people up.
Well, enjoying the battles with drivers and in the end trying to catch up with them. And that was really the story of your race number 2. And in race 2, a 6th place, a 10th overall. And it looks like you enjoyed plenty of fighting in that one.
Yeah, that one was a lot cleaner. I just tried to, obviously starting P1, just tried to keep my nose clean, and it worked. Literally just trying to stay in the draft of people. Fell out the draft a little bit, but then Sam Bradley, who was a blue flag car, lap down, he was just there, just in the right spot for me to get pulled back forwards again.
And I have to ask, starting on pole position for our top 15 at reverse grid race, I mean, how does that feel to you as a pro and driver? Is it a bit daunting thinking you're going to have all these cars behind you, and with the slipstream, everyone's going to come together very quickly at Silverstone? Or is it just, it's just another race, I'm just at the front of the field?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Obviously, the people that were really fast in race 1 are starting further down, so you know that you've got a bit of time to try and pull away. But at a track like this, you're never going to pull away. I mean, you can pull away as much as possible, but as soon as you get to a straight there, if that person's within a second of you, then they're almost on your bumper.
Well, the slipstream ever powerful, like you say, but as we're seeing from some of these clips here from race number 3, when we had the full reverse grid, I mean, in the early stage of the race, absolutely enjoying being right in the mix. I mean, we had the best part of 14, 15 cars separated by no more than a couple of seconds, and you found yourself at one point battling for the top 5, then the top 10. I mean, just take us through it all. I bet you didn't know which way you were going.
Yeah, I mean, that one was hectic. It was literally just going into a corner and praying that people weren't going to either turn in on you or spin, because if one person spun, it was going to be like going bowling and pins flying everywhere.
Well, one small spin, and that's where it can all go away from a win. But for yourself, in the end, you had to settle for some good old-fashioned battling with none other than Duncan Marai, and that was going to be the story all the way through, really, to the end of the race. You couldn't quite pip into a line, though.
Yeah, just obviously trying to keep up with people. I was battling with Duncan for a little bit, just trying to keep with him, push him down the straights. And then I think it was coming out of the final corner, just a bit too much throttle. And in these cars, they're not very forgiving. Rear end kicked out, and that was me. So just trying to pick up from that.
Well, still, may have had a couple of spins, but some good points secured. And onwards we go to Cadwell Park in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for the Lincolnshire circuit?
I've seen it when other people have been using it, but I don't personally own it myself, so I'm going to have to get that before we do it. But I believe we've got a bit of a break before we're at Cadwell, so that'll give me time to get it.
Well, a bit of time to get it and get used to it, and we look forward to seeing whether you can reap the rewards of a bit of practice. But just as we get ready to let you go, Lewis, and have a good evening ahead, of course, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Obviously, everyone that's on the car, Claremont and all of those people, they help make everything possible. Also, people like yourself for the fantastic commentary and all the admins that make sure that everything's possible. And then obviously everyone that turns up and drives every week, because without people actually driving, then it'd be pretty pointless.
Oh, very true. I couldn't have said it better myself. And Lewis, really glad to have you joining not just the grid, but also me in the interview room this evening. Always great to hear your thoughts. Well done on the results today. We look forward to plenty more in round number 5 in 2 weeks' time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So hearing it there from our final interview of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Lewis Mason, and the Aztec Racing driver, very down to earth, and that's what I love about him, and the fact, quite and sensible and on point with regards to his analysis. As we see the moment there, as he referred to the spin with the rear of the car letting go as he tried to chase after the Goldwing Motorsport machine and the number 33, but Mariah able to run away in the end, and with that, Lewis Mason having to settle for 11th. But always learning, always building upon those experiences, and had some great experiences of racing. Race number 1 didn't quite go his way. In the end, had to settle for 15th, but it meant he took reverse grid pole for race number 2 and enjoying the scraps throughout the entire sequence, and even more so in race number 3. And well, needs to learn Cadwell Park, much like what we heard from Jamie Dory earlier on. But if he can learn it, I wouldn't be surprised if he chasing top 5s in the Pram class. He only came close to top 5s on multiple occasions today, and definitely showing that building knowledge of the Legends machine. A very difficult car to drive on the limit, but as time goes on and that knowledge goes in, he'll find out where those limits are and he'll start to put it together. Of that, I'm certain. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close. And we have heard from our 3 interviewees. Give them all a round of applause and a big thank you for joining me in the interview room. We heard from our pros of Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing and also Adam Delwant for NXTGEN Green. And we just heard from our Pro-Am class driver for Aztec Racing, Lewis Mason. Congratulations to all 3 of them on their results. And we look forward to plenty more racing from them and all their rivals at our next round of racing in 2 weeks' time. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show today, and perhaps you're sat there right now, wanted to be on the grid for the Legends Cup, alternative for any of our other series that are ongoing and upcoming of the NXTGEN Racing community, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you check out our official website, and that's at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And as our website appears on screen, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, there's never been a better time to be on the grid with the NXTGEN Racing community, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie racer looking to turn their first ever laps behind the simulator in a league setting. There's a place for you here at NXTGEN Racing, as we hold leagues year in, year out on a whole variety of machines, including the ongoing Legends Cup, the NXTCC, our Premier Touring Car Racing Series. We also do have the GT3 Championship that's currently on pause, but due to come back at some point, and we've got other ideas in the planning stages for the latter half of 2025. Well, there's never been a better time to be part of the NXTGEN Racing community, and all the information, the ability to join the official NXTGEN Racing Discord, all that is here on the website. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, you can of course go to our Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, where there you can find similar information, and also you can get in touch with our staff members and admins and find out what they do, not just on the virtual scene, but also on the real life racing scene, where a good number of them being racing drivers, if not track marshals and stewards. We'd also like to take a big moment to say a thank you to our sponsors, without whom we could not do this: PowerMax, also Next Level Racing, Mark Sykes Designs, Joyce Design, Douglas Motorsport, Sam Cases UK, Falconer PC Builds and Support, Benji Sim Photos, and last but not least, our title sponsor for this season, Doble Motorcycles. And if you are in the market to get your next Power of Dream powered machine on 2 wheels or an ATV on all 4 wheels, well then Doble Motorcycles is the #1 place to go to, the leading Honda motorcycle dealer in the United Kingdom. Well, if you do go to Doble Motorcycles, the family-run business will give you premier service and put you in pole position to become married to the machine of your dreams. And their web address, of course, is doble.co.uk. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attentions to next time out, and for round number 5 of 9 on Tuesday the 8th of July 2025. Save the date, because it will be our first ever trip at NXTGEN Racing to Cadwell Park, and with its rather tight road surface, its plentiful corners and numerous elevation changes, our Legends machines will need to try and take to the rise of a circuit that won't be on 2 wheels or 4, proves to be one of the most difficult in the United Kingdom. But who will come off strong there at Cadwell Park? Well, for all that and more, tune in then on Tuesday the 8th of July to find out how the story continues across our Pro and Pro-Am classes. But until then, we've been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, that's all from us here at NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all.